Welcome to the Unashamed Contender podcast. I am your host, the Unashamed Contender, and this evening I'm going to be having a discussion with Blake regarding why adultery is immoral. I appreciate you having this discussion with me, Blake. I've been trying to figure this out over the years. I take the commandments, and several of them I've got stuck on. The um, let's see, the fourth commandment, like why is it wrong to work on a day that, and if you do work on a day, it warrants the death sentence. Adultery was another one, and then the 10th commandment, and the adultery one seemed to stump me the longest. So but I think over the years I've got a better grasp on why this is immoral, and I want to hear your thoughts more about this. So if you want, I can go ahead and get into like the basic rundown of it, short, sweet, and then you can respond to it, or however you want to do this.
Sure, not a problem. Whatever works for you, James. Just ask that we have a little word of prayer before we get started, and then we can absolutely get right into it.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Heavenly Father, thank you for this wonderful day as we prepare to go into the Sabbath, and I ask that you guide this discussion that it may be glorifying to you and not of our own words, and speak to us, through us, and for us in all that we do. Amen.
Thank you. And appreciate you again coming on here. We had a great time last time. So, pretty much because I like to know why everything, right? If there's a commandment and it's wrong to do something, I want to know why. And people have gotten perplexed with me over the years as I've always asked why, but I really want to understand because I find that if you don't actually understand the law, you're going to end up breaking it unbeknownst to you because you miss the point. And the Pharisees did this to Jesus. But basically, when I ask people why adultery is bad, or you can go on, or immoral, and you can go on right now, Google, Chat GBT, and ask why is adultery bad for Christians. Usually, they'll give you a list of reasons, a list of conditional reasons. Like, in other words, it's bad because it hurts the spouse, or it's bad because STDs, or it's bad because. And so I always ask, well, if that doesn't apply, then is it good now? And they're like, no. And then they'll give another conditional reason. And they keep giving me conditionals, and I'm like, well, every time you give me a conditional, what happens is Christians hear the reasons that they're told it's bad, and then they're like, oh well, that doesn't apply to me, it must be okay. and
Right,
but we
sure.
still maintain the position that it's bad, so it's like, okay, well, what's the reason? um is it bad because God said it as an authority? And if so, did he have a reason for that, or was it just arbitrary? And if it wasn't arbitrary, what was the reason? And so you can kind of track it back. But that's pretty much my contention with the whole list of reasons that Christians generally give for why it's wrong. I want to hear your thoughts. I like I think if we give people conditions, then they'll just find, oh, well, that doesn't apply to me because my spouse is okay with it, or because we're going to use protection, or because there's not going to be a pregnancy because it's just
Well,
oral,
right,
or
yeah. So
yeah,
anytime you give a conditional response, right? That's why the covenants in the Bible are not generally conditional, or the prophecies in the Bible are not generally conditional, right? Like the commandments, the 10 commandments for example, they're not conditional. You're supposed to obey them regardless of the situation. Uh there's no contention there. But yeah, absolutely, when you give somebody a human answer, as I would call it, um, and there's always a back door to a human answer. But when you give them an answer from God, for example, simply him just saying not to do it should be enough. But if they want more than that, that's fine, right? If they want a proper answer as to why it's immoral, uh, immoral at its essence, it implies that it goes against a moral code, meaning it is wrong on a fundamental characteristic level. It is. wrong not just for physical reasons, it is wrong for spiritual, mental, emotional reasons. Um, and it's based in God's law, not man's law.
Okay.
I think we can agree on that. So from my standpoint, for example, when I think about me and my wife Stacy getting married, uh hypothetically speaking, if I were to cheat on her with another woman, that would be considered adultery. In the same vein, if we sin against God, that's cheating on God.
Yes.
So the alliteration I'm leading up to is we're called Christ's church, we're called Christ's bride as his people, right? The people that follow him are his bride, and the people that will be saved are his bride, and we're supposed to be pure, made pure before him. So if we sin against him, if we go against his law, against his will, against his teachings, against what he says, um, we're technically cheating on that relationship because he doesn't want us to do those things. And
Yes.
along with all of the other things that God did give us, the institution of marriage was the first and foremost thing that he gave us. When he first created Adam and Eve, they were to be man and wife. They were to be, one. And if she was unfaithful, then then she would be cheating on him. It's the same relationship, and I guess that's more or less where I'm gonna start. That'll be my jump off for this evening.
Right. Okay. So, well, okay, first let me say I do believe adultery is wrong, and I'm making that clarification because when I question and ask why and stuff, people end up coming along and saying that I promote it, and I've gotten that nonsense before because they don't know how to listen and stuff. But I do believe it's wrong. And it sounds like your reason for saying that it's wrong is that it's a violation of the relationship, correct? Is that what you were getting at?
It's a violation of the institution that God created.
Yes, and I fully agree with you there. So,
I mean, there's more to it than that, right?
right. Well,
If you want to get into the emotional and the spiritual aspect, right? You're separating yourself from that person. It's no longer a marriage of commitment. It's now flawed. It's got flaws and tears in that commitment that you made with another person. Uh, Again, similar to when you break that relationship with God, that marriage, that oneness, that relationship that you have with God, it creates tears, it creates separation. So
yes.
it's immoral because when you do those things, you are separating yourself from that person.
Okay, so let me try to back this up a little bit and see if I can.
Ah, sure, yeah.
So when I look at the other commandments, like let's say, thou shalt not bear false witness. So this is a commandment against lying and deception, and I can give a reason that it's always bad. That is not just because God said it, and it's that when you lie, it breaks trust. Like, why would you trust a liar? Like, you just,
Yeah,
there's
logically
very
speaking, why would you
objective
do that? Yeah.
ways to be like, this is a problem. Like, you don't want to be lied to yourself. You're going to do it to somebody else, violating the golden rule. It breaks trust. It causes all kinds of problems. So, like, it's very objective. But when it comes to marriage, it's like, well, it's a violation, as you're saying, of an institution, which I agree, but that would mean that it's immoral because God made the institution. And if he didn't make the institution, then it wouldn't be immoral and there would be no such thing as adultery. So, for example, you have the animal kingdom. As far as I can tell, there's no marriage there. And these animals aren't going against God because of, the way that deer and lions and wolves and stuff do things. So um, it seems to me then that the commandment against adultery, it's specifically only exists because marriage exists, and marriage exists because God instituted it. And if He didn't institute it, then there would be no sin in this area. Would you agree with that or no?
Well, that wouldn't necessarily be wrong. He instituted it, therefore, breaking that institution would be the immoral act.
Yes,
Marriage is not a man-made construct, and that's where I think a lot of people get it wrong. Is marriage is not something that came from us.
correct.
Marriage is something that came from God, and when you
Yes,
do break it down, when you break the covenant of that institution, yes, that is the immoral act. Is you are sinning against your spouse, you are sinning against God, uh, you are sinning. Yes, you're sinning against the institution, but you're sinning against God because He created that.
right?
He created man and woman. And if you do look in the animal kingdom, if you want to bring that into it, there are lots of cases where animals
Sure.
mate for life.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree with that.
uh, and I think God intended animals to be that way as well. I think we have that example. Now you can look
But
at
do you think they
snakes,
get
which
married?
hmm?
I know that's a weird question, but you would agree that they don't get married, right?
No, they don't have
That
an altar and a preacher and a
well, like it's not a
and a
religious
reception afterwards.
institution for them. It's just how those animals do it for whatever reasons. I don't know. Like they're animals. They're just. I have no idea.
So correct. They were given instincts versus logic and reasoning. They were not given a conscious sentient mind in the same vein that humans are.
Right.
You in that sense you are correct. Animals are born with this natural instinct that in most cases you can take dolphins, you can take whales, you can take whatever most birds also mate for life. Um but you can take those examples and say, okay, nobody, no person came along and trained these birds to do that. And eventually it would leave the innate nature of the animal as it has through sin. Um, but I think God created that instinct within the animal kingdom because if we look at just genetics in general, and we can turn into this or this can be the end of it, whatever. Uh, we can get into the genetics of all of it as well because I just last night was discussing something with a relative of mine and they had a discussion with an individual and he was talking about pure blood, which the logic and reasoning behind that is Adam and Eve were the first two beings created and they of course they had kids, and then you have to say, well, how did they make how did they have kids? Well, the brothers and sisters clearly had to get married. Well, that was fine because they were as close to sinlessness as they could get. But we have 6,000 years of sin that has ravaged the world. And now, if a brother and sister get married, you end up with some very special characteristics. And you can see that in the animal kingdom too. My parents had a dog that was born of a brother and sister relationship, a pure blood, if you if you look at it that way. And she only lived to be 10 years old and had just about every problem that an animal can have
Right.
besides cancer.
Right.
She had half a brain cell. She was blind for the most part, most of her life. She had seizures when she was a puppy. She never ran straight. She never walked straight. She tore every ligament in her body. She was a wreck.
Right.
And that's 6,000 years of sin. And so when I hear somebody saying I should be able to marry my sister, again, I have to take it back to the Bible. I mean, and that was coming from a professed Christian. Uh, I have to take it back to the Bible where God says that's not right.
Yes. Correct. Yeah. No, I agree. Um.
and
Well.
and and again, what I'm getting at is, yes, we can look at it as sinning against the institution, but at the end of the day, it's something God gave us. It's a rule God gave us, and because He gave us that rule, because we love Him, because we want to have a good relationship with Him, and because He is all powerful, all knowing, and all present, He probably knows a little bit more than we do, and He's doing it for our sake. He's doing it. He's doing it for our benefit.
Sure.
He made a man and woman relationship, not a man and man, not a man and not a woman and woman, not a cousin and cousin, not a brother and sister, not a father and child, not a mother and child,
Right.
a man and a woman relationship. And they are supposed to be one. They're supposed to be connected for the rest of their lives. They're supposed to, even when it doesn't feel like it, choose each other every single day. They're supposed to uh, honor the commitment to that institution that they've vowed they would do. When you take your vows, when you stand up and say, I will take them through for richer, for poor, for in sickness and in health, uh, on and on as the vows go, till death do us part, that's literal, right? That's literally till death do us part, that you're to honor that institution for the rest of your life.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. Okay, so it sounds like you're largely agreeing with me that we shouldn't be giving people conditionals because they would just be like,
No,
yeah, but
because there's nothing conditional about it.
okay. All right. Well, yeah, no, and I agree. Yeah, okay. So great. We shouldn't give people conditionals, which is what Christians usually resort to, and it bugs me out because I'm like, you do
and,
realize that that might not
and
apply
it
to them, right?
yeah,
um
no, and I have to ask, I don't know what Christians are saying that, because they should know better. As Christians, they should
Well,
know
you do know.
better.
I mean, have you've heard them give like reasons like that before, correct? Oh, because of STDs, or oh, because it could hurt your spouse, or because it could cause a pregnancy, which would make things interesting with the family, and like you've heard them offer things like this as reasons before, right?
So, yeah, in conjunction with the honoring the marriage, right? I've heard that in addition to. I've never heard it as the sole basis. But I mean, again, as you said, that doesn't mean they're not doing it. They're not giving that as the sole reason, but they may be considering who they're talking to. They may be talking to somebody who's not a believer, and so just because God says doesn't work for them,
Well, sure,
and so
yeah.
they may want to give an alternate reason. But at the end of the day, I believe what I believe because I believe in God,
Right. Well, see, here's
right?
the thing, though. If you give the non-believer this conditional, they'll be like, "Oh, well, that doesn't apply to me, so it's fine," even according to Christians. And it's like, well, no, it's just the guy that told you that's not actually the reason that it's immoral. And so
Okay.
me, I don't like giving. I mean, I'm not against saying, hey, it can cause these other problems and it can be issues in these other ways. Sure, I'm not against that, but the reason that it's immoral is because God made the institution of marriage and moralized
Yep.
it and limited uh sex to within the purview or within the bounds of marriage, and that's the
Sure.
reason. And I
So
think, yeah,
let
go ahead.
let me play a little devil's advocate here, right?
Sure.
So I'll play a non-believer. I don't believe in God, and so therefore your measure of authority on your institution of marriage doesn't apply to me because I don't believe God exists. Therefore, Him saying so doesn't really concern me.
Right.
So, what other reason could you have for me honoring my marriage?
uh well, so my response to you would be, I would want to know why you're getting married, because marriage is wholly a religious thing. If you're interested in it for the legal protections and stuff, I guess that's great, but that's not really that has nothing to do with marriage. So, and then I could offer you reasons, but that's not the reason that it's wrong or immoral. It's just these are things that, might cause issues for you. So just be aware of them. Like, that would be my honest response. Like, I think that the atheist or unbeliever, if you will, who is like, literally, I don't see any problem with adultery or whatever different variation of sexual immorality that they think is like, I don't see, like, they have nothing. If you do not accept God, you would therefore not accept marriage. You would, therefore adultery does not exist, or at least the concept of it's not immoral. Like, I don't know how they
So
could ever
yeah,
get a
yeah. Why bother?
metric.
Why bother get marrying at all?
Right, yeah, like, what exactly? Like, it's a religious thing, and you're not religious, so why are you doing it? Like, and they might say, well, I don't think it's
So
religious, and it came from the Egyptians or something. I don't know. I have no idea. But like, I think that their position is actually sensible from their perspective. I mean, if you don't believe in God, why on earth would you get married? Like,
yeah, why not? Why would you not just live with the person? So
right?
that's great. That leads me into kind of the thing that made me excited to talk about this.
Okay, great.
Um, Recently,
Yep.
it's come up in a religious discussion
Okay.
that I was involved in a group. We'll call it a Bible study. Um, and we were discussing, let's see, where did we start with this? I think it was discussing passing judgment on somebody for their actions or something like that. Well, somebody threw out the scenario. Uh, of course, we believe that you shouldn't live together outside of marriage. That is what we would call fornication, right? That's not adultery. Adultery is where a
When
person
you
who
say
is
live
married,
together, you mean cohabitate in the sense of, like,
yeah,
you're having sexual relations, correct? Is that what you're?
yeah,
Okay, yeah.
yeah. If there is a romantic involvement,
Okay, okay.
um, and I would even say an emotional relationship. I would say it doesn't even necessarily have to be a physical relationship. If you're involved romantically with one another in really any capacity, I think living together would be a stretch. And I think I think if you're a Christian and you're thinking about how you want to represent your beliefs, I think cohabitating with a woman in general is a outside of marriage is not necessarily the best thing as far as optics go, but that depends on how worried you are about
When you said
your
cohabitate, you mean live together, like physically being in the same building?
physically being in the
Okay.
same building, not having any relationship
Okay,
of
okay,
any
sure.
kind.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
are
yeah.
two friends
I
who
understand.
simply cohabitate
Right.
together.
Yeah, okay.
And again, appearances and impressions, your life is a witnessing opportunity.
Yeah,
We talked
sure.
about
Yeah.
that last
Avoid
time.
all
You're
appearance of
you're
evil. I get you. I'm good.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so, you may incur some optics that would be less than optimal
Oh yeah,
for
no, I
a
I get it. I
Christian.
get it. I should
So,
fully understand. So, but back to your
yeah,
story, because I'm very curious about
right.
this Bible
So
study thing that
back
you. Yeah.
back to my story.
Yeah.
A situation was brought up about fornication, not just adultery. Uh, and again, fornication, as defined, is two people who are not married living together, being romantically involved with one another, either physically, emotionally, or otherwise. But we would generally associate a physical relationship with those two people living together.
Okay.
So we can't necessarily pass judgment on every situation because we don't know every situation. But say you did know this situation. In a situation where there's a man who was recently in a car accident, is now a quadriplegic,
Which
and he
means
is now
what?
on
What is a quadruple?
quadriplegic. He's paralyzed from the neck down.
Ooh. Oh, okay.
Rough,
That's
right?
tough. Yeah, no, that's really rough.
Well, before, he was a normal guy like you and me. He had plans for his life and he wanted to get married to his girlfriend. And he has a ring and everything. Well, now he's on Medicare and Medicaid. If they get married, Medicare and Medicaid will no longer cover his treatments, his equipment, his medical assistance, his physical therapy.
Because
It
she's
just it
his
won't
wife and
cover
she
it
would
because
provide
now
it.
there's
Yeah.
an income coming into the house, right?
Right. Sure. Yeah.
So if they got married, she would have to go broke before his benefits would kick back in again.
Right.
Okay. So he wants to get married to her.
Right.
But again, there's this problem. They obviously, if they want to avoid fornicating, they would have to get married. This led to a bit of a heated discussion on
I'm
this
sure it did.
topic,
Yeah, this probably did.
which again, it's to me, it's very, very black and white, right?
Oh, I think the matter is pretty simple. Yeah, but I can see that
I
it's
think it's
totally
very simple. If you're not willing to have that faith, if you're not willing to um, test God and see what He will do, or if you think it's too much of a test, you shouldn't get married. Or if you do get married, you need to accept that your life is going to be a little bit more difficult, but you're in a relationship with somebody you care for, um, and again, you honor that institution. Well, that's not really the point of this discussion. A scenario was brought up
hmm
by another individual, a third party,
hmm
who offered this situation, which
Okay.
I thought was very interesting, and one that I won't lie popped into my mind, but I wasn't about to say because, again, the obvious answer is, right in front of you. But what if they got spiritually married, married in the sight of God, but not married in the law, in the eyes of the law?
Right. Yeah. Sure.
So you may be honoring one institution, but you're dishonoring another institution because you are,
You mean the state?
hmm?
You mean the state? You'd be honoring marriage but dishonoring the state. Which two institutions you talking here?
So you're honoring the institution of marriage. You're dishonoring God's you're dishonoring God's 10 commandments because now you're committing false witness. You're lying to the state.
Well, okay, yeah, I get your point. So this is a little bit
Because
messy. So
because it is deceit. When you break it down, it is deceit.
well, yeah, I mean, I could see how you could argue. It's kind of funky. So let's back this up a little bit, and then I want to get back to the where we were at with the atheists. But so a
Sure.
couple things here. One of the things that you said, I want to get to the state, but the first thing that you mentioned was that adultery or fornication could be romantic or it could be emotional, or I think you used another word, but it doesn't necessarily have to be sexual
Uh,
intimacy.
spiritual, but
Yeah,
I
okay,
mean
sure.
that's
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't remember all the words you used. So my thing is, and we may disagree on this, and that's fine, but when I read the Bible, adultery is explicitly sexual. There is a I don't know what you want to call it, but it's called concept creep, and it's the idea of broadening a definition to include more things. So when I look in the Bible, all examples, all examples ever, adultery is always sexual in nature, whether it's in the mind, in the imagination, or whether it's physical. But concept creep, I don't know exactly when this came to be a thing, but they've broadened the definition to include emotional attachment. And I'm like, well, so that's interesting because
well, so let me ask you this. If if somebody comes up to my wife
sure.
and they're having a conversation
Yep.
and it ends up being a very deep, very meaningful conversation,
Yep.
and they decide that they have feelings for another, but they're not going to act on it, right?
Well, what do you mean? You mean romantic feelings or just feelings?
Yeah,
Because
yeah. No,
oh,
I
okay,
mean,
romantic feelings. Oh, okay.
I mean
All right.
romantic feelings. Or somebody comes up to me, right?
Well,
Act,
mhm,
actually, perfect example. There is a lady,
uh-huh.
wouldn't that's a stretch, but there is a lady who has a bit of a one-sided, and I really want to emphasize that, um, set of feelings for me.
Okay.
And I know about it. I refuse to talk to her. And it's not to be rude,
Sure.
it's just to put distance because
Right.
I don't want to appear
Sure.
to be having an explicit relationship with
Sure.
this lady. Um, if I talk to her,
Uh-huh.
or if she talks to me and we have a conversation, and it does not stay on a platonic, strictly platonic level, if I appear in any way to show any sort of feeling, then she may feel that I feel something for her.
Yes.
Okay. And say that that temptation did arise. I did say something that had the appearance of being flirtatious. And say the conversation even got flirtatious. I'm not physically committing any act against my marriage, but I am verbally committing act against my marriage. I and therefore spiritually committing an act against my marriage. So what I'm getting at is sin starts in the mind, right?
Right.
Okay. So if I'm having this conversation and it does become flirtatious and it and it goes down that pathway, I'm saying what I'm saying. I'm saying flirtatious things. Like it or not, my mind is there. I'm not committing any physical act, but my
Sure.
mind is there. My
Right.
mind is already acting on that temptation and therefore committing adultery. And I guess that's
Okay.
more what I mean.
Yeah, so let me back this up even further because
No, you're fine.
there's a lot of words that we're using and concepts that we're using that are very ill defined, and so I want to make sure we know what we're talking about. So, flirt. I don't know if you know how ambiguous that is, but
It is, and I know
it
it's
can
very
mean
broad, and it's
literally
been
anything you can imagine as long as the other person thinks that it is, and that makes it very, very subjective. So let me just give some objective things here. I do
yeah.
not, me personally, I do not think that it is wrong if I give a flower to a girl. I can't think of a more simple act of innocent affection than just giving a flower to like my friend or something. Now,
Oh, sure,
the
right.
today in society, that's this big romantic thing, and Valentine's Day and roses and everybody knows, and I'm like, no, everybody doesn't know. You kind of socially constructed that and made it up. I don't see how that could ever possibly be a
Right.
thing ever. In
So
fact, when I get to
I
heaven, I'm going to get a flower and I'm going to take it to a very specific friend of mine. I'm going to hand it to her and say this will never fade. And I if somebody has a problem with that, I mean I guess, but I just don't see it. Um so
so here's my question to
yeah,
that.
go ahead.
Do either one of you have any, like, is there any possibility of a romantic, and I'm assuming the answer is no, but neither one of you have any sort of inclination to one another.
Uh, that's correct. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So
But is that
I
flirtatious? Because a lot of people
well,
say,
no,
"Oh,
no, because
oh
I
okay,
think that I think that is a man having a very genuine respect for a woman.
yeah,
Now, if you know that a person has some unrequited feelings for you, and you do give them a flower, that may appear to them
Oh, sure.
as
Yeah.
confirming those feelings.
Yeah.
So again, is it better not to do it at all?
So here's what I do. This is what I do. I just talk. Like I don't think up out in the clouds like, well, maybe this, maybe that. I just say specifically to whoever it is, whatever it is, and that's it. I'd be like, I love you, so here's this flower. I was thinking of you, and that's it. It's not, and I'll make the clarification. It's not romantic. It's not any of that stuff. Like I'm just like, I love you because you're my friend, and I was thinking about you. Here's this flower, so that's nice, and that's
Yeah,
it.
like
And I'll agree that not everybody's going to be able to respond to that properly or handle that properly, but just for me
and
and who I
not
am,
everybody's going to understand.
yeah, no, and the reality is that a lot of people won't, and I get that. But if me and my friend are on the same page with that, and we're just totally like platonic about it and everything, like because we just aren't interested in romance or marriage or sex or any of that stuff. We just like each other's company. We think similarly. We have same interests. Whatever the reason is, we get along. We love each other, and it's simple and pure, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I could give them a flower. I could give them a card. It doesn't matter. I don't see how any of that's a problem. I do see how other people could view it as a problem, but it's like, okay, so we're supposed to abstain from all appearance of evil, but we're supposed to abstain from the appearance of actual evil, not what everybody and their grandma thinks is evil. And I'll give you an example. The Pharisees thought that
Yeah,
it
and
was
I
evil.
totally agree with that.
The Pharisees thought that it was evil for, Jesus and his disciples to go pick corn or wheat on the Sabbath and eat it. And Jesus didn't care about what they thought was evil. He's like, yeah, it's not. So get over yourselves. And so, now if I'm walking out of the bathroom with her after doors locked, okay, now you got an argument. That now you have an appearance of something that I think you could argue is evil. But, if I give somebody a
Yeah,
flower, I
that's
mean, you
pretty
just
obvious.
yeah, right. Like there's different spectrums. But to me, if I give somebody a flower, like that's not an appearance that like I'm good that like it's romantic and like sexual. Like to me, it's just like they're my friend. I love them. Gave them a flower because women like flowers. So I don't see what the problem is. So I wanted to make that clarification. Do you more or less agree with that?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Okay, sure, sure, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we
So
covered the
so
flirt thing. Go ahead.
but I want to be extremely clear.
Sure.
Um and I think we can agree with I think we've been saying this the whole time. Adultery, fornication, whatever, dishonoring that institution is a very black and white act, right? Regardless of what degrees people may think there are, or gray, or whatever, there is no gray. You either are or you aren't.
Well,
And
well, that's just true because of the law of the excluded middle. But what are you meaning to say by it?
so I'm meaning, like, in the same vein that people think there are degrees of sin, um, the Bible is very clear that God views all sin as sin. From the greatest to the least, it is sin to
You're saying that there's a line, and
him.
there's and you're on one side of the line or the other. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the law of the excluded middle. I fully agree. Okay, so where that line is that's where people get murky and foggy. Now me, I
and
tried
that's
to.
and that's where I would say it's subjective to the relationship. Again,
Oh, okay. Well,
not
that's good. I agree.
right,
Yeah.
not gray. There is a line,
Right.
but it is
Sure.
subjective to the relationship.
Right. And that's the thing when it comes to the audience or the appearance of evil. That's the thing where other people can be frustrating because they think that it's all subject to their background and their everything, and really it doesn't, and but so yeah, I agree with that.
So
So
yeah, so for example, it would be wildly inappropriate, I think,
uh-huh.
if I bought say I were a content creator on YouTube, or I were an influencer, somebody who walks around and talks to people, which I, I think I could do. Probably not very well, but I think I could do. Just because I like talking to people, I like getting their input on various things. But
Sure.
say I was one of these content creators and who walks around, holds a fake mic up to somebody's mouth and asks for a response. Say I go out one day and I'm filming myself the whole time, and I buy a dozen roses.
Hmm.
It's Valentine's Day, and I walk up to 12 random women who are very clearly with their husbands, give them a rose, give them a hug, say I
Hmm.
love you, and then walk away. That very obviously is inappropriate and wrong.
Yeah, just do the setting. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. But to my very, very good friend, who is my wife's cousin, who is married to another very, very good friend of mine, I feel like for, if she were a mother, I feel like for Mother's Day, I could give her a card and a rose and say, listen, I'm very proud of the achievement you've, clearly accomplished.
Right.
Uh, we are very, very good friends,
Yeah.
and I love you as a friend. That's not evil,
Yeah.
right?
No, I agree.
That's me doing something nice for a friend.
Yeah, I agree. Well,
And so that's kind of what I'm getting at. It's subjective to the relationship.
right.
It's optics
You have
are
to have a
involved.
lot of wisdom and discretion. You got to know who the person is. You got to know the audience around you, the setting, the circumstances,
Yeah.
clarifications if any need to be made or have been made in the past. Like, yeah, of course. But
So
if
then,
but
so
knowing all that, you should be able to navigate that pretty well without ever being concerned about like sinning, you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
totally.
Okay.
If say this other couple who has visited our church once or twice, they came in and his wife happened to sit next to me. And just because, again, we're good friends, I give her a hug, I give him a hug. We sit down. If somebody looks at that and they're like, "Oh, he just gave that woman a hug right in front of his wife. Did you see? I saw that." It's like, hey, look, she's a very good friend of mine. They're clearly married. I did it in front of him.
Yeah, right. Yeah. See, and I think people lack the discretion to be able to figure this
Yeah.
stuff out. Like,
But so that being said,
uh
and I'm going to propose this question. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I'll propose it anyway.
sure.
Would it be better? And I actually have an answer to this question. Would it be better to not do any of that at all? Not give those roses, not give those friendly hugs,
At
not give
all, like even like when there's no
at
other
all,
people.
ever in any circumstance.
So I think the answer to well, okay, repeat the question. Would it be better? Is that what you said?
Would it would it be better as a Christian, as a witness, would it be
Yes.
better to not do any gesture of any kind that could in any way be perceived as being adulterous?
No.
Whether
I'll just
mm,
answer that. No, I do
yeah,
not
no,
think it's better. I think well, because here's the thing.
because you know what's happened? Because
Huh.
I can give you a real world example.
Well, can I give you two Bible verses? Because I think this is a
No,
really important point, and then I want to hear your example. So here you go.
Absolutely.
Jesus said, "This is the commandment I've got for you, that you love one another as I have loved you." And furthermore, that was in John 15:12. But furthermore, 1 Peter 1:22, it says that we should love one another with a pure heart fervently. So pure, right? So obviously not like sexual immorality type, but
Yeah,
we should love one another with a pure heart fervently. Fervently meaning like burning or passion is the words, the supplementary words you
yeah,
could use
sure.
there.
Yeah,
So
with intensity,
yeah,
with some
intensity.
level of
That's a great word.
intensity.
Yeah, exactly. And so I don't know how you can be a Christian and follow Jesus and the apostles and stuff in the Bible if you do not love uh, both sexes, um and especially within the church,
Yep.
purely and fervently. And the idea that you have to conceal any act of affection ever, because it's not just towards women, like me being a man, it's not just me towards women. If I was to do this to show affection pure and fervent for another guy. Now that's people be like, oh, that's homosexual.
That's
I'm
a
like,
little
hold on now.
strange.
Like, wait a second, you've just made it. There's two groups of people. There's men and there's women in the church. You've just made it to where I can't love any of them as Christ has loved us, and I can't
And
do
so,
it
yeah.
with a pure heart fervently either. And I'm like, well, that's dumb for one. It's against Jesus, it's against the apostles, and I don't like literally the whole foundation of God's government is love. So if you're like, yeah, but you can't show it, it's like, well, okay, goodbye. Like, I'm gone. Like, I don't know where you came up with this stuff, but a lot of people hold to it, and I think it's very destructive for churches and, for just, friendships, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. So perfect. That's great.
Your
that
example.
leads right into my example. Since
Yes.
2018, we have
Yes.
seen a huge uptick in the homosexuality movement, the love all movement. Um, we've seen a massive uptick in that sentimentality of you should love everybody. Well, here's the thing: if you're really worried about optics, you should be really careful about walking in Walmart with your best friend and pushing a stroller.
Yeah. That's true.
Like I said, ever since 2019, 2018, 2019, we have seen this massive uptick, and it's become this overwhelming divide. People are either holding hands, hugging one another, just absolutely wrapped around each other, or they're not talking at all. There is no middle ground of relationships anymore, because people are so worried about appearances rather than having a genuine relationship. Let me tell you,
Yeah.
when I go to church and I see my friends at church, I say hi to them, I wave to them, I shake their hand, I give them a hug, whatever. I have a genuine relationship with them. I'm excited to see them. I
Right.
haven't seen I haven't seen them in 6 days. I'm I'm ecstatic to see them.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
I'm grateful to be able to spend time with them. I'm grateful to have a relationship with these people. Is it inappropriate for me to go up to my friends and hug them? Some of them are girls, some of them are guys. Is that inappropriate? No, because we're friends. We
Right.
have a friendly
Exactly.
relationship. Now, if I walk in and I see a female or even a male friend and I sweep them off their feet and I go and they sit in my lap for all of church service, that might be a little inappropriate.
Sure.
And is it appropriate for me to go up to a random stranger in Walmart and give them a hug, do all this stuff with? No.
Right.
Again, there are degrees,
Sure.
there are there is a line, but it's dependent on the relationship, and I'm just touching back on that again. But I think people are so overwhelmingly worried about the optics. Yes, impressions are important, and you have to take that into consideration. You have to consider the people around you when you're doing things with your friends
Mm-hmm.
that
Sure.
aren't your wife. Or, for example, next weekend I'm out of town. My wife is not going with me, but I'm out of town with some friends of mine. We're going on a little trip. I'm taking my daughter with me, and we're gonna have a great time. Is that wrong? Is it wrong that I have friends that are very nice ladies that are 30, 40 years older than I am? Or their significant others are coming with us? Basically, the short answer is no, because I enjoy spending time with these people. They are my friends. I have a
Right.
great deal of
Yeah.
respect for them. I
Yeah.
have respect for my wife. First and foremost, I have respect for my wife. I have respect for my God, and the things he tells me to do and not do. I want to follow that institution, and then I have respect for the relationships that I have in my life, that I don't want to tarnish those relationships. I don't want to scar them up with a bunch of regrets. I
Sure.
mean, we're the world we live in is full of immoral actions, right? It's okay to cheat on your husband. It's okay to cheat on your wife. It's okay to cheat on your boyfriend, on your girlfriend. Polyamory is a big thing right now. A man or a woman shouldn't be tied down to one significant other. That's a gross miscarriage. That's absolutely incorrect. um, but where was I going with this?
It's fine. If you want, I can
That
go
that
back to the optics of it. So the optics of it are, they're important, but they're not all important. And people
they're
are
too
placing,
focused on,
they're, yeah,
right?
they're
And that's where
misplacing
we're
the
at right now, is
emphasis.
they're too focused on. and
Correct,
that's and
correct.
that's and that's where I was going with that, is like, we live in a world where it's this massive one side of uh open relationships and all this stuff, and then there's this other side of, you can't even talk to your exes, even if you're friends.
Yeah.
Like, you can't talk to an ex. Like,
Well,
I
not even
have
just
a
an
I have a
ex,
big
just
problem with that.
anybody. Yeah, like if you sit, if you like, if I was to go to church right now, just any random church, whatever, and I sat near a female that was round about my age, and we had a pleasant discussion like for 5 minutes exchanging, people would look at that and be like, "Ooh," it's like there might be something going on there. It's like, okay, well, hold
Yeah.
on now. So my thing is that, look, okay, so we don't want to make appearances, like, they're important, but they're not all important. So don't misplace your emphasis. And then you have to understand what it actually appears like. It could appear like you're in a romantic and or sexual physical relationship, or it could just appear like that you're friends, or your acquaintances, or like you had a great conversation, or like, it. But people think that it's all, like you're saying, it's all one or all the other, and I think that's just obnoxious.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was getting at, is we ever since 2018, 2019, we have seen just this absolute divide in the way people look at relationships now, and there is very little middle ground. You see it so rarely anymore, where, I mean, I'll do it on purpose. I'll be sitting somewhere and I'll be on my phone and I'll look up and I'll realize, man, there are like 10 other people in this room. We're all 3 feet apart. Like, I can at least talk to one of these people, and try to have a very short acquainted relationship with them. We're all just, we're either glued to our phones, or we're hermits.
Yeah.
But that's where I was going with that. But there are a lot of other ways to kind of break that institution. So,
Do you mind,
adultery.
before we go into that, because I wanted to mention one other thing here.
Yep,
Okay, so you
absolutely. Go
said
ahead.
other ways. Okay, so I'm gonna write that down. Other ways adulterate. Okay. Um. Yes. So the state. You mentioned the state. Okay. And this is something that I was figuring we would get to along the way. Because you mentioned deception and with the state and all. So my question is, should the state be involved with this? And there's a reason why I say it, and we've already touched on it. So we agree that marriage is wholly religious. It's wholly a Christian thing. So if the state enforces marriage, which is a wholly religious, dogmatic Christian thing, on unbelievers, secular people, atheists, like isn't that kind of like enforcing a religious dogma on people?
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
so let me add something to that. So I do think that Caesar, the state. I'm just going to refer to the state as Caesar
Sure. Yeah.
because it just fits in my vocabulary better to use it. So I do think Caesar, his job, you have a society which is people interacting with other people. These people
Yep.
decide they want a government structure, so they appoint Caesar to govern them. And Caesar is supposed to govern their interactions with each other, people's interactions with each other. So I think that marriage, being that it's people interacting with each other, is at least within the jurisdiction of Caesar to make laws regarding. Whether he should make any certain specific law, that's a different question, but it's at least within his jurisdiction because that's what he was appointed for. However, because marriage is an explicitly religious dogma thing, wholly tied to Christianity, the Bible, and believers in Genesis, should the state, the secular state, have any place imposing that on uh non-Christians or unbelievers or secular people or atheists? Or go ahead.
Short answer, yes. And I'll tell you why.
Yeah, fill that out.
So we agree that the last six commandments. We'll just take this from the commandment perspective.
Sure.
The last six commandments are your relationship with other people.
Right. Caesar's
Right.
jurisdiction. That's what I call this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's relationships with other people. Is it wrong for a, be it theocracy, be it a democracy, a republic, a communist, is it wrong to have general laws of the land that encompass some of those things? Because I think we can agree that murder was, you not murdering somebody was first instituted by God, but it's also a law of the land.
I think it's actually as transcendent as God himself. I don't think he made that, but that's a
Uh,
totally different debate. But go
well,
ahead.
yes,
Continue on.
yes, yes. But again, we can take the last six commandments, that is still God's government, right?
Yes.
So realistically, nothing, no law that is on this earth is truly original to this earth unless it goes against God's government.
Unless it goes against. I thought I was understanding everything that you were saying until you made that last part there. Okay, so
So
nothing
so
is
right,
truly original.
we have let's talk about blue, we can go into blue laws and stuff like that, but that's not really what I'm wanting to get into. There are laws that there are laws or will be laws that require somebody to renounce their religion. There are certain countries where you're not allowed to be Christian and stuff like that.
Sure, yeah, yeah.
They
Right.
explicitly say you have to denounce your religion, yada yada yada. I'm not talking about that, right? That's that is that last part of that comment. Are countries who have laws that force you to denounce a religion.
Okay. All right. Okay,
So
gotcha.
that's that last half.
Okay. All
But
right.
everything else, every other law that is created, whether it be taxes, and I would include taxes in this because God has us tithe, God has us give money to the church. There are certain things involved with that. Uh, Money back to the government, that is more of an earthly construct, but it is still something we do. Regardless, I'm getting tangential with it. We live I need to make this point. Um, the government has certain rights. They are allowed to make certain laws.
It's their
Again,
jurisdiction.
right, it's their jurisdiction.
Sure.
They are allowed to make laws regarding, I would say the last six commandments, which does include the institution of marriage, for whether it's tax purposes, whether it's consensus purposes, that's perfectly fine. There is nothing in the law explicitly, earthly law, there's nothing in earthly law that says you can't cheat on your wife.
Well, there are some. I know I think it's, I want to say Missouri or
Okay, at least that
Minnesota.
I'm aware of.
There's
But
a couple states that it's illegal to commit adultery, like it's against the law, state law.
oh,
So yeah.
interesting.
Um.
So there, I would say they have no jurisdiction because that is a moral law. But
Oh, so you're saying like, okay, so you're saying that Caesar has jurisdiction to make some sort of legally constructed thing to for tax purposes or for consensus or taking census or for whatever it is, like because it's people interacting with people, they can create some legal thing and do whatever they want. But when it comes to the violation of marriage, like you were saying, adultery, uh, the government doesn't really have any place to say because that's wholly a religious dogma, Christian
and
dogma
that
from
could
Genesis.
be a little muddy,
Is that correct?
honestly.
Was that what you were trying
Yeah,
to express? Okay, okay.
right. Yeah. So again, our first, let's just start with the introduction to the Declaration of Independence and our First Amendment. We have a right to worship according to our conscience. So therefore, the government doesn't have a right to make laws that are directly regarding morality, right?
Well, they do, and they should. You don't actually believe that, I don't think. Murder is a great example. Like,
Well, and
like
so
you have
again,
they have to.
I'm talking about like
Purely
things
religious
that
dogma.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
yes, I agree.
I'm not talking about interactions with other people. I'm talking about your relationship with God, right?
Well, okay, great.
They can't make a law that is against your conscience.
Right. So, well, yeah, I agree. They can't. Well, they could. You could have a really messed up conscience, but I'll agree. I think I get your point there. So then my question would be: is is the violation of the marriage institution, is it more of a sin against your spouse or is it more of a sin against God? And let me just make this situation that I'm posing to you, this question, a little bit more cutting. Let's say your spouse is okay with it. Is it more of a sin against your spouse or more of a sin against God?
Well, so if your spouse is okay with it, then I would say she is also committing adultery.
Well, sure, but that wasn't my
but
question.
but uh, so I'll say that I would I would say, irregardless, it is first and foremost a sin against God. It
I
is
agree.
secondly a sin against your spouse
Okay, I agree. I okay. Good, good, good. Okay, so we're
because you are first and foremost sinning against the one who made the construct, the institution.
right. Yes, exactly.
Secondly, you are sinning against the person you are in that relationship with.
Which you did make vows with and so forth. So let me ask you about vows right quick, and then I want to get to your other ways that we can commit adultery thing that you mentioned.
Yep.
So vows. When I read the Bible, the vow is your sex is to stay within marriage. That seems to be what it's all based off of. I don't really see that it's based off of anything else. I know other people will include all this stuff in their vows. Um, I think till death do us part is implied largely, um, but or inferred, but like people can add other things to their vows. But what do you think the vow is actually according to the Bible? That you're actually like, if you had a purely biblical marriage and you got rid of all, you stripped away all the traditional vows and all the vows that they add just because it's fun and it's got like poetry in it, and if you stripped everything away and it was just the vow that the Bible's promoting, what would that vow be?
I think I'm gonna make some people mad with this.
Well, you don't. Well, you don't have to say anything you
Well,
don't
no,
feel
no, no.
comfortable
I
saying,
don't
because
mind saying it
well,
because it's
yeah,
what
but
I
I don't want
believe.
you to needlessly incriminate yourself or mess your like whatever you feel comfortable with. But like, I don't mind making people mad. I'm not
No,
trying
no.
to, but I don't
It's
want you to need to feel like trapped or you have to, because you don't have to.
no, because we'll get the keyboard warriors out there, and I mean, if this is what gets them, then they missed the last hour.
Okay, okay.
So, so, um, when you really break it down to what the vow actually is saying, this is what I think the vow actually, at its core, is. In my objective to love the Lord and to love my neighbor and my spouse, I will choose to love God first and choose to love my spouse second, in all ways befitting to them. And the only way that these vows can be broken is should one of us pass.
Well, but that's not really breaking the vow. It's just the
Well,
relationship
I mean, come
dissolves.
to an end. Like the institution at that point would no longer be valid because one of you has passed on.
Yeah, right. I agree. So, but I'm sure you also agree that adultery would also break it, right? Or no?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay. You didn't say it. I figured that you meant it, but okay. So
Well,
you're
so and
saying
again, that's there implied in my objective to honor relation my relationship with God and honor my relationship with my
okay,
spouse.
right? I understand. Yeah,
I won't do these things. Like
strongly inferred.
it's
Sure.
not it's not even a thought. You know, my thought is not about other women. My thought is not about images that may be presented to me. My thought is, okay, I'm gonna wake up every morning and think to myself, boy, how can I make my wife's life easier? how,
Right.
how can I serve my wife? How can I make sacrifices that make her life better? And does she want those things? You know, I'm gonna talk to her. I'm gonna find out, like, hey, these are my plans. This okay with you? Like, for example, so just like next weekend, my wife is not working on Friday. She, of course, she's not working on Sabbath, but she's working on Sunday, so she won't be able to come on our trip with us. So I talk with her and I say, if you don't want me to go on this, that's fine. But I thought it might be fun for our daughter. Of course, it's going to be fun for me. I get to hang out with some friends. You know, I'm going to have a great time. This is something that I'm interested in doing. But I want to get my daughter out there. I want her to experience, because she's an only child and will probably be an only child. I want her to have relationships with other people, not just be stuck in a house all weekend. I want her to have relationships with friends and people she can. I want her to be comfortable in. Uh, I want her to be
Social
comfortable
settings.
talking to people,
Yeah.
you know.
Sure.
And so in my objective to do that, in my objective to have her uh, live what I guess I would consider a normal life, uh, I'm gonna get her out. I'm gonna put her out there. I'm gonna
Right.
we're gonna interact. I'm gonna show her what it's like to interact with people, you know. And so in again, in my objective to do that, I'm gonna go out on weekends, take these little trips. uh we're gonna go to friends' houses, we're gonna hang out with friends, you know. And because Stacy has to work on Sunday, she's not able to join us, unfortunately. And so again, I ask her, I consult with her, is that okay with you? Are you all right with that?
Sure. Yeah.
And you know, and she says yes.
Right.
So so again, when you take the vows and you boil them down past the poetry
Right.
to its simplicity, it is at its foremost, I swear to love this person. I swear to do what's best for this person. You know, I want to I want to better our relationship together. I want to serve this person because I love them, because I want to express these feelings that I have for them. I want to express the commitment I'm making to them. So I buy my wife chocolates on Valentine's Day because she's obsessed with chocolate.
Right. So the first time you expressed it was you're going to honor God first, and it's His institution,
Yep.
and then
Yep.
you're committing yourself to love your spouse second to God, but then that's what that is, and obviously adultery breaks it, and death will break it. But other than that, like it's you know it was supposed to be eternal, but death and stuff can break it. So
Well,
okay.
so let you know what? Let's talk about that. Uh because a lot of people will bring up divorce and that Moses made divorce legal, but I think there's a very simple shutdown to that. Divorce was only made legal because the people wanted it.
Yeah, so that's a very interesting thing there because
Jesus is very clear about that.
yeah,
He
no, he
said,
is. It's just very odd that God would do that. Like I understand that it was because they
well, he
weren't
did it. He
that
did it
that
with other things too. He did it with the quail. He did it with them having a king. He didn't want them to have, you call it the flesh pots of Egypt, whatever, but he didn't want them to eat quail. He wanted them to eat manna, but he gave them quail anyway, and they ate it till they were sick. He didn't want them to get divorced, but he allowed that institution because they kept asking for it. They kept asking for it. They kept asking for it. He didn't want them to have a king,
yeah, he
but
went
he
well, but yeah, I want to think
no,
about those a little bit more. I agree with you that, like especially on the king, I think that's a very clear example. He didn't want them to have a king, but they whined about it and they got it. And then there's obviously the bill of divorce permitted for the hardness of their hearts and stuff. And Jesus is very clear on that. It's just I guess it's hard for me to like I suppose the only way I can really make sense of that is if I was to put myself in God's shoes, which I really can't do, but just for sake of
sure,
like
yeah, for
thinking
kicks
about
and
it, it's
giggles.
like okay, so these people are going to do it their way, and my option is to either try to continue working with them, make this concession. It's still wrong for them to have a king. I'm their king. It's still wrong for them to divorce their wife over whatever nonsense. But I'm just gonna go ahead and like I don't want to throw them away, so I'm gonna kind of put up with this a little bit. Ultimately, it would be similar in a marriage, like your spouse, maybe they even commit adultery against you, or they do whatever that upsets you, or violate, rebel, whatever, but you don't want to discard them. You still want to like even though
Well,
you
and
don't
so
accept
and
what they did, you're still gonna try to help them. You're not just gonna throw them away because they messed up. I guess looking at it from that
and
perspective, I can get it.
exactly. That's exactly the direction I'm going with that, because if adultery can end a marriage for you, now I get it. It hurts. My first girlfriend cheated on me. My first girlfriend that I ever had. Um, she was very, very special to me at the time. Uh, she cheated on me. She went home for a trip, and she comes back and she's like, "Look, I'm really sorry." And I didn't totally understand the concept at the time, but if I really sit down and think about it, it's like, man, if I really cared about her, I could have moved past that. But did it hurt? Yes, absolutely it
Yeah,
hurt.
sure.
It hurt tremendously. But now that I'm married with a lovely wife, as you saw a couple minutes ago, uh, I'm married and I love her and I choose her every single day. I'm not saying that just because she's here listening.
Is she holding a
uh,
shoe over your head?
but because I love her and I choose her, if she did do those things, right, I would I would have to pause for a minute before I even considered even separating, even taking some time apart. I would have to pause and consider it, and say to myself, man, do I really love her if I'm even willing to separate? Like, if I'm not willing to forgive her, because let's take it back to a spiritual construct. Again, us as Christians, we're in a committed relationship, marriage with Jesus. And if sinning is committing adultery against God, we commit adultery every day.
Well, we're not supposed to, and there's a
No, and
solution for that.
no, and we're
But
not supposed to. We touched on that last time.
yes, yeah, we should do that
But
again too. But go ahead, finish
but
up.
but but the
Yeah.
fact is we do sin, we do make mistakes, we do fall, we do falter, and we are supposed to strive to be an appropriate, pure bride. But we're human, right? We make mistakes. We should attempt to overcome them, and at some point we will.
I think we can have it today, but I don't want to change
I think we
topics.
can have it. I think we can too. Does that mean it's going to happen? No. Does it mean it can't happen? Absolutely. Does it mean we should try for it to happen? Absolutely.
We got to have that
I'm
discussion sometime.
basically I'm not going to commit to 100% guarantee, right? I'm not I'm not going to commit to say that I'm never going to sin in the future, because there are sins that I commit that I don't know about.
Well, sure, yeah, nobody, yeah, I would never refer to unknown sin because how could you ever know what you don't know, and therefore you could. Now, it's not about claiming sinlessness, but that's besides the point. We should have that discussion. I think that would be very
We should.
fascinating. Going
But
back,
to get back to it, if you're going to drop your relationship because of a mistake your spouse made, don't you think God has every right to drop you for the countless
yeah,
mistakes you've made?
yeah, no, I
So
agree. I um, ever
now
since
if
I've,
she
yeah, go ahead.
persists after it, right? If or if I persist after it, or if a spouse persists after committing adultery and just has no regard for that relationship,
Yeah, sure, yeah.
at that point it becomes the exact same situation as what, I guess you could say, inaugurated, but established the bill of divorce at its origin, because that person no longer wants to be in that relationship. They want to get out of that relationship.
And
They're not
they've
wanting to
done
honor that
everything
relationship.
ultimately, and well, and they are doing everything ultimately they can to get out of it. If they're persisting in it, they're like, yeah, I don't want this, whatever, go away, etc.
and, and at that point, you're not separating from that person because you want to be away from that person. You're separating from that person because you love that person, and they're like, I don't want to be with you anymore.
Well,
It's
you're
like, fine, you've
separate.
asked so
Well, to me, it's more like they're separating from you, because you don't
well,
necessarily
and
want
that's
that.
more correct, right?
Yeah.
That would be more correct. But you're allowing that separation to
Yes.
take
Sure.
place
Yeah.
because just like God allows people to separate themselves from him, free will, God allows people to separate from him. You allowing your spouse to separate from you is because you love them and you want them to have a choice.
Right. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Because otherwise, it would just be some form of slavery and control and
Exactly,
and
and that,
nuttiness.
that's not what God's about.
Sure.
And so we're actually getting pretty deep with this, and I like where this is going.
Well,
Um,
so I don't know where you were intending to just go, but you did mention other ways we can commit adultery, and I said I'd bring you back to that. So, what were you? Do you remember what you were?
so I was just thinking of circumstances that, I mean, there was nothing profoundly deep about it. Of course
Oh, okay.
we have different things like, again, bestiality and other stuff. But again, when it comes down to it, when you want to look at what adultery is, you really should look at what your relationship with God is. Because again, the marriage institution was created to be an example of that relationship we're supposed to have with God.
Was that the
Because
purpose of it? I know that it's used in scripture to represent our relationship with God. I don't know that was the purpose of it. Um
so I would say it is. I would say it was created as the example. I would say it was created for the function of a man and woman being together, but I would say it was created also as the best example that we can have of what our relationship with God is supposed to be like.
Well, yeah, and I agree that I agree with that. It was just more like how you would know that that was God's intention or purpose. But that's it. I don't want to get into that. It's besides the point.
Right, and I'm not
You
claiming to
made your
say
point
that's
clear.
I'm not saying that was the only reason. I'm just saying that is my conjecture based on that is my conclusion based on the examples that I've been given in the Bible and what I've studied. That's the conclusion that I've came to, that marriage is the overarching example of what our relationship with God is supposed to be like. And that's why it's been attacked so heavily throughout human history, is because the devil doesn't want us to have that whole awesome example. I mean, when you look at the very beginning of human history, directly after the fall of man, the almost exclusively the first thing that was attacked, when you have uh Cain's society versus Adam and Eve's society, uh one of the first things that was attacked was the marriage.
What would you be able to mention like one example so I know what you're talking? Like I'll agree that like because I think everything was attacked, but you're saying that this was like a more a key thing being attacked. What?
So yeah, right. So one of the things that we have mentioned in Genesis is when God sees the people on the earth,
Mm-hmm.
he says the thoughts of man were evil continually.
Sure. Yeah.
And then he follows that up with they were marrying and giving in marriage. I mean, that was the prominent example given.
Well, yes. I don't think that there's a problem with marrying and giving in marriage, though. I think that it's only bad if it's bad. Um,
Well, and so I think that was the point by the example, is they were marrying and giving in marriage. Like, why would it be mentioned if it was wholesome?
so is this mentioned in Genesis or is this mentioned by Jesus in the New Testament? Like, I know it's mentioned by Jesus. Like, well, when Jesus says, you know, as it was in the days of Noah, they were eating and drinking, marrying, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with those things. I think he was trying to indicate that normal life was continuing on, and then suddenly the floods came and took them all away. I think that
In that context, you're absolutely right. They were continuing in normal life, and that's where Jesus says, "As in the days of Noah, so
sure,
shall the
sure,
coming of the Son of Man be." Life will be continuing all the way up into the second coming. I
right.
think that's where a lot of people get that wrong. Um, but no, if I'm not mistaken, it actually says it. Da,
I'm
da,
not
da, da,
disagreeing with
da.
you. I was just wondering why you were saying this, but probably it's got to be by Genesis like 6 or something, so it's not too not
Yeah, it's 6. I'm looking for it here.
so oh 6:2. No, hold on. Let's see. That's not it.
No, keep going. It's further down than that.
Yeah, hold on.
And the intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And was sorry he made them. He agreed in his heart. The Lord will destroy a man and beast, creeping thing. I was sure that he said it in here somewhere. Actually, it specifically mentions violence. Oh, yeah, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. So
Oh,
you can take flesh to mean quite a few different things,
oh, I
but
see what you're saying. Okay.
I think in that context it's also talking about the immoral acts between people in a physical sense.
Yeah, all flesh. Okay. Well, I know that flesh can sometimes refer to the pudenda, according to Strong's, which is
Yeah, it can be just character in general or humanity in general.
yeah. So
Um,
it'd be different ways, but it's fine. I was just curious. Well, going back to where we were, So, do you mind if I talk about the Sabbath and marriage? Like, because we've been talking all about marriage, specifically adultery and marriage.
Yeah,
Why
yeah,
adultery
sure.
is bad? It's because of a violation of marriage. But the reason that I bring up the Sabbath also is because it's also an institution that got like and the interesting thing, there's several things that are very unique about the Sabbath and marriage. I mean, there's things unique about all of them, but what I'm trying to get at here is that, if you violated the Sabbath in the days of Moses, there was a guy that did it, he was stoned.
Sure.
Um, and then, the violation of marriage adultery, the death penalty was, I mean, you were stoned. It's a death penalty. So these are considered very high crimes. But the interesting thing about them is that they're wholly religious dogma in the sense that, and I'm not saying that to say that they're bad, but it's that, okay, so for example, God makes everything in 6 days, then he blesses the seventh day, and then he's like, if you work on the seventh day, you receive the death penalty. And it's like, well, okay, well, he could have made the earth in any number of days that he wanted. He could have done it all in the first day and blessed the second day. He could have, like, literally, I don't want to say that it's arbitrary, but he could have not he could have made it in 6 days or 7 days and not and then rested and not blessed anything and not made it immoral to work. Like, it would be fine to work every day, and it would just be, he could have done it that way, but he didn't. He did it a very specific way, for whatever his reasons were. I don't think that they were wholly arbitrary, but I'm not going to try to imagine what his reasons were for choosing 7 days instead of six, or like.
I'll stretch a conjecture out there.
Well, yeah. Can I finish my point though? And
But
then,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
finish.
So he's done this, but like, here's the thing: if he didn't do it, all this sin, and then this goes for both the Sabbath and for marriage. If he didn't set up these institutions, there could be no violation of them. Therefore, there would be a whole lot less sin. And these are the only two commandments that I can see that are actually like this, because there are very objective tools or metrics you can use to say why all the other commandments are morally wrong, even for non-believers, like very objective measures. But when it comes to these, how are you objectively measuring this? It's very much like, this is what he preferred, and if you don't do it, it's the death sentence. And so it's like, people, receive the death sentence because God preferred to make an institution and moralize it. Like, that's a very hard thing, I think, for people to consider and to think about. And I've spent time thinking about it. Now I want to hear your thoughts, and you can offer your conjecture as well.
No, sure. Okay. So,
First, do you agree that it's largely arbitrary seeming? I think he has probably a reason for 6 days instead of 7 or 8 or 12. But you see how it's kind of like, he could have just not blessed any day. He could, like, so it's kind of
so
like he just made
I'm
it.
gonna I'm gonna point to this verse.
Sure.
Um, he is the same yesterday, today, and always, and forever.
Yes. Sure. Yes. I
Right?
agree.
Okay.
Yes.
So, would it be incorrect to say that the Sabbath has always been a
I think so.
construct?
I think it would be
Okay.
incorrect, and here's why. If you read in Genesis, he made everything in 6 days, and then it says in Genesis, at the beginning of Genesis 2, it says, "And God blessed the seventh day because in it he had rested." So it's like, he created everything, then he blessed the day and made it holy, not it's always been holy, and so he actually created it in line with the previous thing that already existed, so that way it would land on a certain, like, I mean, you could argue that, but it's not substantiated by scripture. The scriptures seem to be pretty clear in saying that God blessed this day after he had made it, after he had made everything in 6. And so I think that the Sabbath began on day 7. That I think that that's very demonstrable from scripture.
Yeah, right. And so, well, that's why we, that's why the Sabbath starts at sundown Friday because of the whole timing of uh, the creation.
The days, sure,
But,
yeah.
right. But I put it this way: God is very specific. God is a very specific God. He
Sure.
is meticulous. He is detailed. If God was not specific in all his ways and all his actions and everything that he does, we would have our world would look like the drawing of a toddler.
Well, no, not
It,
necessarily. I think it could be he could be very detailed about things that are necessary for function or for whatever, and then less detailed about other things. I do agree with you that he's detailed, that
right.
he pays
Well,
attention to detail and he's purposeful and stuff. And
he
again,
has
I'm not.
he has a
Go ahead.
he has a reason for absolutely everything, right? There's a reason that uh plants have photoreceptors. There's a reason that they have a certain number of leaves. They have a reason they have petals. There's a reason they
Sure.
bloom. There's a reason they bear fruit. There's a reason for everything. There's a reason for marriage. There's a reason we don't murder. There's a reason we don't lie.
So what's the reason for 6 days and the seventh day he rested and blessed it and made it immoral to work on that day, and if you do, you die. And I'm not trying to be harsh, but that's the
No, no, you're
question.
good. No, you're good. That goes right into what I was saying again because that's what was previously established.
So you think okay, so you think that the Sabbath has had existed before creation, and so basically right after Sabbath, God started making everything in 6 days so that way he would rest. Is that what you're saying? On the
Yeah,
seventh? Okay.
yeah, I would say that.
What would you can you argue that from scriptural texts other than I am the Lord, I change not?
So I would argue it from that standpoint. I would also argue it
Can
from the literal explanation that we have in Genesis from the creation.
Can you mention that one? Okay, literal explanation in Genesis. I want you to mention that one, but I want to challenge back what you said, the I changed not one. Okay. So
Sure.
I understand that argument and I agree that he doesn't change, but I don't think it's saying that he doesn't ever do something like for the first time. So like God is the only being that's eternal. And then I guess one day, or not a day, because maybe time wasn't created yet. I have no idea. That's all beyond my comprehension. But then at some point, he decided to start creating. I don't think he's always been creating since eternity, because I mean, you could argue that, but there, if creation, like I think it's generally agreed, and I've not, I'm not prepped for this, but the idea is that creation had a beginning, which means that before that beginning, God was, and he didn't change, but he started doing something. I'm not. My point being that
Right. So
God not changing.
eternity before
I think it's
etern-
about him, who he is, the principles of his character, his government. I don't think that it means that, well, he's not going to decide on Tuesday to, do something because he's never done that on any other Tuesday ever. I don't think that that's what the point of those verses are. Would you, yes or no?
Yeah, yeah. So I agree with that. Do I believe that there are some things that were created on this earth? So example given, marriage is something that I would say was probably created on this earth for this earth.
Okay, well then God
Uh,
changed, did he, or didn't he?
no, he didn't
Okay,
change.
good. I agree. Yeah. So
No.
you
So
use
do I agree that do I consent that God does create things for the first time? Yeah, because
okay.
this earth is a prime example of that.
Okay.
This earth didn't exist before, but were there other trees of knowledge of good and evil before this? Probably. Were there other creations before this? Probably.
Well, sorry. Okay, so there could have been. I don't like dealing with probablys just because I'm a Bible only guy. Um, you could always argue that in the great unknown of all the things, the Bible doesn't say that there's a whole bunch of information out there. I'll grant you that because that's only sensible. But I don't like to
Yeah,
give
okay,
high
all right, all right.
speculations outside
I
of
get that.
scripture.
All right,
But go back to the
but we
point.
can.
Okay, so God, you offered this conjecture or this argument, which is that God doesn't change, therefore the Sabbath has always been, and He created everything in 6 days after the Sabbath that took place before that, so that way He could rest on the Sabbath. So you're saying ultimately the Sabbath has always been because God doesn't change, but I don't think God doing something for the first time means that He changed. Because I don't think that was the point of
No,
that.
and so it might have been under a different structure, but I think there was a cycle, right? I think there was a 7 day, 7 literal day cycle prior to the creation of this world because there were angels prior to the creation of this world, right?
Okay,
So
but
there was probably a set amount of time. And again, I understand that this is
it's highly
dealing in,
speculative.
yeah, it's speculative, but angels did have work to do. They had certain responsibilities that they had to do at certain points in time. And was there probably a time when they all congregated together to sing in the choir or to listen to the choir and sing praises to God? Yes.
This is very highly speculative.
But and I
I get
understand
what
if
you're
we want
saying.
to
There's a lot of
skip over this, that's
no, no,
fine.
you're fine. There's a lot of traditional views that are held, and there's different traditional views that are held regarding angels and whether or not they existed before creation, and etc. And people can go into Revelation, and I interpret it differently than them, and it's fine and all that.
Okay, well,
Okay,
let me.
so let's deal with your other the other one you mentioned. You said that was the first argument you offered, but then you said there's something literal in Genesis that. Do you remember that one?
Well, and that was basically giving the literal 6 days of creation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're literally being 6 days. But actually, let me offer this up. Let me pose this question. Do you think that there will be Sabbaths after the second coming?
Yeah, yes, because it says in Isaiah, I think 66 or 50. Yeah, it's 66 or
It does
it
say it
does say it.
explicitly.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
so but that's different than going back in time. Like in forward in time, we have a text that says it. Going back in time, we don't. I've heard that a similar argument to that. For like, I'm sure you've heard of feast keepers. They still keep the seventh or 10th day of the seventh month and
Yeah,
all.
yeah. And
And
I'm
they
not talking about stuff like that.
no, but they use that same argument also to say that we should still keep the feast days because those days were chosen based off of some big calendar that existed before creation. And I
Well,
understand the
that's
argument.
not founded in any
I
way.
I just don't
Those were all
think that there's
ceremonial.
right. Well, I think that they're prophetic. I think those times were chosen to predict the future, which they do.
Yes.
But
Yes.
they're saying that they predict the future, yes, but they also existed in times past. And whether it's them using that argument or you using that argument for the seventh day Sabbath, I don't really see anything in Scripture that indicates that. But so here's what I think. I wanted to see what you think, but here's what I think.
Yeah.
So we have the golden rule that goes like this: do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. I think it's Matthew 7, verse 12. Jesus says, whatsoever you would, therefore, that men should do to you, do you even so to them. This is just a law about basic consideration for other human beings, the same type of consideration you would want for yourself. Just love people like you would love yourself. Okay, all right.
So,
So
okay.
I think that God is a person, and he is the way he is, and he likes things the way that he likes them. I suppose that he has preferences and stuff. Like, I mean, I don't see any reason to believe that he doesn't. So, here's what I would pose, and I'm going to give you an analogy, and then I'll get down to the actual thing that we're talking about. If I have a bunch of Legos, let's say I have Star Wars Lego sets. Like I have an X-wing and a TIE fighter and the Star Destroyers and all this stuff. And
Man after my
I
own heart.
have them here. However, I got them, I don't know. But I really just want them set up and displayed. Like just to like I just want to display them because they're pretty, or maybe they're gardens and stuff, flowers, and they're not to play with. It's just I have them and I want them set up and I want them this way and this is what they're for and this is their purpose and I want you to respect that.
Sure.
And then you come in and you're like, wow, this is really cool. And you pick one up and you're like, haha, and you're flying them through the air and you're like rearranging stuff. And then I come and I see what you're doing and I'm very disturbed and perplexed and overwhelmed and irritated because you messed up my thing.
And you start looking like the Grim Reaper about to
Well, I mean,
undertake my soul.
it hurt me, right? It hurt my feelings.
Well,
It
so
hurt like
what
I
is
really
that?
didn't like that.
What is that at its core? And I'll give my answer. That is disrespect.
Yeah, so yeah, I it's disrespect. It's inconsiderate. It's inconsiderate. I would argue that it's selfish. Because if somebody creates something, whether it's a Lego display that's only for a display, or they make I don't know, a cool wooden box that's specifically to put this marbles in and it's supposed to be in a certain spot and it makes them really happy if it's just that way. And then
Because
you
they're
like
OCD.
take that box out and you stick it in the garage and you roll the marbles all around the floor. Like now that's just you don't do that. That's inconsiderate, it's selfish and disrespectful. Um and so I think that for whatever reasons, God has preferences. I do think that that's very obvious or clear. Uh,
Yeah.
I think that he's like, well, I want it to be the seventh day because I want it to be like because he had like maybe he likes the number seven. I don't know. I don't care.
Well, so
I
and
can't I can't
if you
ask
want to
him.
break it down as far as numbers go, we that's made very clear that the number 7 is the symbol of perfection. Like that's been proven in the Bible.
Yeah,
7,
sure, yeah. That's just what I agree.
and that is because God institutionalized that as a symbol of perfection. And the number 6 is the symbol of man, which is imperfect. They're missing that one thing that makes them perfect.
Well, that's a completely different thing. I don't want to go there because
That's
it's
that's touching
technically the
into
number of a man is 666 if you're referring to the mark of the beast or the number of the beast or whatever, but it's not actually 6. It's 666. Um
which would be a trinity of sixes. But
yeah, and well, I guess, but in only in like our numerical system. I don't know if it would actually play out that way in something else. It would still refer to the same quantity, but in any case, uh where were we at? So okay,
but
7.
in any
You were
case,
making the
so
case for 7. Yeah, okay. So well, and I get that. I mean, it could be that. I don't know what the reason is, but I think that God's allowed to have preferences and to want things a
so
certain way. And if you mess them up, like, because technically, I don't want to say we're his Lego set, but like he made us. We are not inanimate objects. We have minds and consciences and feelings and preferences of our own, and we're intelligent and so forth. And
yeah,
um,
we're super Legos.
but he wants hey, we're super Lego, but he wants us to he created us and he's like, I want you to do things this way. And I think just out of respect for him and being considerate of others, just like we would be considerate of another human, or even an
Right. And
animal,
and so
we would be considerate of what he wants. And I don't see how that would be a problem. The only thing that would be the next thing that I would want to argue, though, or talk about, and I'm not saying I don't have an answer for this also, because I do, but I want to hear what you think, which is okay, so this is the way he wants it. I can respect that. I don't want to be disrespectful or selfish. I want to be considerate of what he wants, and he wants the seventh day to not be worked on, and he wants sex to stay within marriage. Okay, I can respect that. But then God's like, yeah, but if you mess with my Lego set or you work on this day that I don't, or whatever it is, it warrants the death sentence. Doesn't that seem a little bit intense or a little harsh maybe for, or no?
Well, no, no,
No.
I,
Okay.
I
Why?
wouldn't. I wouldn't say that at all.
Why?
Um,
Well, would you kill your kid if you if you mess with your Legos?
Probably, but and I don't want anyone to take that out of context. But
Sure.
let me let me make that extremely clear, right?
Okay.
So, i- if we're going to go back to it, the first two back to the very beginning of this, the first two institutions we have are the Sabbath and marriage.
Yes.
At the beginning, at the foundation of everything we are, at our very beginning of existence, whether it was before, doesn't doesn't matter. At our foundation, we had marriage and the Sabbath,
And they existed before sin entered our world.
which is also why I would say the Sabbath existed before creation because it existed before the law. But
Yeah, yeah, okay.
anyway, those two things existed and they were the primary establishment, and they were the designation, they were the mark of God's authority, right?
I
So
agree.
when you
Yes.
so
Absolutely.
when you take the Sabbath, right? Let's take the Sabbath.
Yeah.
The Sabbath, he made the earth in 6 days, and on the seventh day he rested and he hallowed it to finalize, to give an ending, a finish to his creation. Right? It solidified that creation was over, creation is done, the world is here, the world is established. I am finished with my work. Here is the Sabbath, and this is the day I mark as I'm resting because I have completed my work.
Right, yeah.
That day forever points back to God creating the earth. It forever gives credit that he was the one who made the earth, and it forever points to him as having the everlasting, all powerful authority over this world. He is the one who holds its atoms together. He is the one that allows us to have air. He is the one that allows us to live in our sin. Uh, and the Sabbath is supposed to be a reminder that he gives us life every day, that he created the world at its outset, and he will continue uh, to keep us around as long as we will honor him. And marriage, again, I said in the beginning, points to that relationship that we are supposed to have with God, that eternal, loving, always choosing the other person, choosing to serve, choosing to do what's best for the other person. So, again, those were the first two institutions they have, and both of them acknowledge God's authority over this world as he's the one who created it. He is the one who establishes it, and he's the one who continues to take care of it. Because we have verses like the oceans can come so far and no further. We have examples of him creating and changing weather and him allowing the weather to be changed. And we have overwhelming examples of God's authority over the earth when you challenge, because when you desecrate the Sabbath and when you desecrate marriage, you're challenging God's authority. You're saying you don't have that authority over me.
I agree.
So that's why the punishments were so severe in regards to marriage and the Sabbath, is because when you desecrate those things, you are directly challenging God's authority over your life.
Right. Yeah. So my answer to
And
the
I know that was a really long-winded answer,
no,
but
it's fine. Well, my answer is ultimately the same. I think there was a little something more I was going to add to it, but here's the thing: God's not
even more, man.
merely a dad with a Lego display that he doesn't want his kids messing up. He's also responsible for the universe, and he in maintaining its harmony and like he's a king, like he's got a kingdom, right? And
He
Jesus
is a ruler.
Jesus made a very it's very interesting where he made this statement. I think it might actually appear in several gospels, but uh the the Jews were accusing him of casting out demons by the prince of demons, and he's like, well, if Satan is casting out Satan, then his kingdom is divided and can't stand. And it's interesting that Jesus said this because he, even though he was talking to the Pharisees, there was kind of very strong implications there. Hey, Lucifer, you just kind of like admitted your kingdom's gonna end, bro. But
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting. But it's a very important thing because it's true that if you have a kingdom or a household, Jesus used this example too, that's divided against itself, it cannot stand. And so
Yeah, a lot of people give
you
Abe Lincoln credit for that. Somebody said it first.
you have to if you're going to have a kingdom or a house or a business or anything that's going to be united,
There
then
has to be a rule. There
there
has to be
has to
rules.
yeah, there has to be rules and they have to be followed. There has to be somebody in charge. There has to be you can't be divided about who's in charge. You can't be divided about, well, what's the right way. You can't be divided about who's the king is, or any of that. Like there has to be harmony. And so while God may have preferences and stuff, and we want to respect his preferences just like we would respect the preferences of a dog or a cat or another person or a friend or uncle or cousin or wife or anybody, we respect his too. But he's not just a person with preferences. He is a ruler, and if he's going to maintain harmony in the universe, his universal kingdom, because it embraces the whole universe, you have to acknowledge him as being the authority. And so I think the answer lies in that. It's that, look, there has to be, like, you can argue, this is the thing that's so interesting about it. When it comes to the Sabbath and marriage, you can kind of argue like, well, there's reasons you'd want to keep, a husband and wife together for the kids. They have better outcomes when they grow up. There's a lot of good arguments there to be made.
But
But
again, there you're applying a conditional reason
well, yeah, right.
to
But
that
there are some
relationship.
things. There are some things there that people could argue. I'm not saying that that's the reason, but there are some things you could argue. But
Yeah.
with both of them, because they're both the Sabbath and marriage, they're both religious, they're Christian, they're from Genesis, they're from God.
One would even say they're united.
Well, they both started, yeah, in Genesis before sin given to the human race. But they're both. Where was I going with this? I got a little distracted there. Um. Oh yeah, like all the other commandments, you can be like, well, I would want to keep that anyway because, and then there's this very objective reason that you could just look at nature, you could look at how humanity is, the nature of humanity. You could just be like, yeah, you don't want to lie, you don't want to kill, you don't want to steal because X, Y, Z and reasons.
Now, I'll tell
But
you, I would be very cautious before telling people to look at the nature of humanity as their basis for following God's law.
well,
And I know that that's not what you're saying,
yeah,
but
I do want to touch on that. Can I just finish because I wanted to
yeah,
get that point out and
yeah.
then okay, so but the thing about these two commandments is that they're wholly based in authority. So if there was anything the authority of God. But if there's anything that you are going to do that would signify that you worship the true God, the God of Genesis, the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, the Bible, etc. if there was anything that you were going to do that would signal that you worship him, you'd keep the Sabbath and you would honor the institution of marriage. Because every other thing, there's really solid objective measures and metrics you can use to be like, yeah, we don't
Yeah,
want to do
no,
this.
nobody has a quarrel with not wanting to die,
Right, yeah.
or nobody has a quarrel with not wanting to be lied to. But and this is what it boils down to. They don't want, and I think, yeah, I think this is what it boils down to. They don't want somebody else ruling their life.
They meaning people that
I meaning people who don't, I wouldn't say necessarily don't follow the Sabbath, but I would say people who don't worship God in general. Um,
oh, okay. So just you're just saying
people,
people.
so people want a savior. People don't. Most people don't want a ruler, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Because a ruler implies that there is a specific set of laws that you have to follow. And again, 90% 90% of the 10 commandments people are totally cool with.
Yeah,
But it's that,
even the adultery one. Like a lot of people
yeah,
like will still go along
people
with
are
that one
usually
even though
pretty
it's wholly
cool with
religious.
that.
Yeah, yeah, they usually will go along with that. But these two, I mean, the Sabbath more so, I guess, because a lot of people, even secular people, will still regard adultery as being bad after, in marriage and stuff. And even boyfriend girlfriend, they're not even married. There's still something there. But
Yeah.
both of them, but it's true that both of them, especially after having this discussion, they're both religious, they're both dogmatic, they're both from God. And if you're going to do anything that signals that you worship God and acknowledge Him as your authority, it would be keeping the Sabbath and honoring marriage, because
Yeah.
everything
And
else
and,
there's
and again,
objective
when
metrics to establish.
honoring marriage is not just honoring your spouse. Honoring marriage is honoring your relationship with God too. I said that before.
Yeah, that it primarily you said it is
Yeah.
first it's your acknowledgement of God's authority. Second, it's your vows to commit and love your spouse and
Yeah.
to put
It
them
i- it
first. And
is it
yeah,
is you acknowledging that you choose, that you allow God to rule your life, and you allow God to have the last say in what happens. I mean, even take it from a logic standpoint. If I'm in a situation, right? If I'm a life, let's say a life and death situation, and yeah, all right. Say I'm lost in a cave.
mm-hmm.
Perfect example. Say I'm lost in a cave, and a 5-year-old comes up and says, "I think we should wait here and not go anywhere." And you have a an individual, an adult with a light and 30 years of cave diving or cave exploration experience, and he says, "I think we should keep going because of X, Y, and Z reason." Who are you going to listen to?
Well, I would go with the cave expert.
Well, yeah. So even from a logic based standpoint, why would you honor God? Because he knows more than you do.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, no,
So
I'll
so
concede all that.
and
Yeah,
and that's
sure.
the example I'm giving. And so even from a logic standpoint, it makes more sense to listen to what God has to say.
Sure.
And not just a honoring the relationship experience, from a logical experience,
Right.
from a logical
Perspective.
standpoint
Yeah.
perspective, it makes more sense. Because would I rather listen to the guy who knows the future and can do something to change it, or am I going to listen to somebody who's exactly like me and is simply going based off of past experiences and has no idea what the outcome of the situation is going to be.
Right, sure. No,
I'm going to listen to the guy. I'm going to
yeah.
listen to the guy who knows what's going to happen.
No, I
So
totally agree. Yes. Yes. And
so
I'll
yeah,
make
when
that argument a lot of times when I'm talking with atheists or unbelievers. I'm like, if it's the case that God can predict the future and he's all knowing or whatever, it makes more sense to trust that maybe he knows what he's doing in these areas that you don't feel comfortable because you think you know more. It's like, yeah, but
yeah, so well, so exactly. So when I think about, that marriage institution, and I think about honoring the Sabbath, and when I accepted when I accept that that is the mark of his authority, that honoring the Sabbath and honoring my marriage is acknowledging that God created the world and that God wants to have a relationship with me and that he wants me to spend all of eternity with him. When I acknowledge that is the case and I love him and respect him and want to best serve him, and he asks me to worship on a specific day because it's good for me, why would I not listen?
yeah. No, I
What
agree.
like
Like it makes
yeah,
sense.
and so that's I mean, when you really want to boil it down, when you really want to boil adultery down, and when you want to boil the Sabbath down and whatnot, it is out of a respect for the being that created and holds you together.
Yeah. No, I agree. Respect and consideration. Now, you mentioned when I was making my point there a minute ago that you would be very slow to say that we should base morality off of, or laws, yeah, morality, off of the nature of humanity. Well, I want you, and then I interrupted you because I wanted to finish.
No,
Uh,
sure, sure, sure.
I wanted you to go
So
ahead and finish that thought there.
where I was going with that,
Yeah.
and I think you know where I'm going with this, is if we base our morality off of the way the world is, the world's morality is ever changing. It's very
Okay, sure.
fluid.
Gotcha.
It changes all the time. And that's simply where I was going that with that, because in one part of the world, it's immoral to murder your kids. In another part of the world, it is absolutely fine, accepted, and or even encouraged to murder your children. Eat them, put them on a wall for display, whatever. Uh, you can't go based off the morality of man. There has to be an absolute
Well,
objective truth.
yeah, not the morality of man, but what I was saying is that it has to. Here's what I was meaning when I said that it can be based off of the nature of man. So there are laws, and there's the golden rule specifically based off the nature of man, which is that man has preferences, likes and dislikes. We should therefore be considerate of those because we would want them to consider us. That's what I was meaning. I wasn't meaning like, well, that's
Yeah,
in the nature of man to do
that's a
evil,
rule to
therefore we should.
directly contradict
Huh?
your that's a rule to directly contradict your innate nature.
Um, yes. So, but it is part of. I wasn't referring to the evil nature of man. I was referring to the fact that to the just what would you
We
call it?
all want to live.
Neutral nature of man, which is that he has hunger and thirst and
Self-preservation.
preferences and yeah, there's just things about humans that are you should take into consideration. I wasn't meaning that we should base it off of like, well, it's in the nature of man to commit adultery. It's one of the most natural things ever. Like, yeah, but that's not what I was getting
It
at.
is.
That yeah, but that's not what I was basing it off the idea that you know
Right.
just like
Man
the
is
Bible
hungry,
does, like
man
be
wants food.
considerate of others. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
and yes, from that standpoint, absolutely correct. But that's kind of why I was putting that cautionary
sure,
statement on
yeah, I
there.
got you.
Is
That's
just like to cover our bases. I don't want anybody to go out and say, so and so said that I should base my Christian beliefs off of what the world's doing. That is not what we're saying at all. You should absolutely not base your Christian beliefs off of what the world is doing. In fact, I would say we're at the point where it's almost exactly the opposite, because we're at the point in this world where you can shoot somebody for disagreeing with you, and your marriage means absolutely nothing. I would say that is kind of where we're at right now. And I mean, I'll even put this to it: the devil has attacked those two institutions from the onset. I said marriage was something that I believe was kind of highlighted in the beginning. I think worship and honoring a committed relationship as being the institution of marriage were the number one and two things that were hit from the onset of sin.
Yeah, and I think well, it makes logical sense that Satan would want to attack those things because those are like wholly based on
Again,
God's
those
authority.
those are the things that
Yeah,
mark God's authority.
right.
And
Yeah.
that's why, if you turn to uh Revelation, where it talks about the beast with the 10 horns, and it talks about um worshiping the beast and the mark of the beast and stuff like that, a that is very much a worship thing, not a physical thing. I think we can all agree on that. But worship and marriage go hand in hand. I think when it really comes down to it, worship and marriage go hand in hand, because
Do you
marriage
mean the
again is
Sabbath in marriage? Is that what you're meaning to say? Because worship is
yeah. I mean Sabbath. I
like
mean
I know that Sabbath is considered a day of worship, but there's only like one verse in the Bible that presents it as a day of worship, and it's that Isaiah 66 verse or whatever that's referring to the future. The Bible overwhelmingly presents the Sabbath as a day of rest, not of worship. The worship, we and I don't like. You might not like this expression if you've heard it before, but I do believe we are supposed to worship God every day because that means to me worship is what are you giving your highest priority to, and whatever your highest priority is in your life, that's what
well,
you
yeah,
worship.
no, so I agree
So
that when you go through your week, day 1 should be, all right, I have the Sabbath in 6 days. I'm going to prepare my week to be ready for the Sabbath. Like my week is in preparation for that day of rest.
right, because your priority is to uh, acknowledge God's authority and respect Him and so forth, like we've
Right.
talked
That's
about.
why
Yeah,
I don't mean to share too much about my personal life, but that's why I spent 6, 7 hours before I jumped on with you, working on my vehicle, because I wanted it ready and done. That way I wasn't having to work on it over the weekend. It was done. It was ready
sure, I understand.
uh, for the weekend.
Yeah,
Um, Regardless of for whatever reasons that may be. But at the end of the day, your week is a preparation for rest. Your work is a responsibility that you are given, right? It says 6 days shalt thou work, or shalt thou labor and do all thy work. So we are supposed to work 6 days towards the Sabbath, and then we rest on the Sabbath to mark that completed work, acknowledge God's authority, acknowledge that He created the world. And I mean, I really think I I think it's as simple as that. I don't think there's any miraculous explanation. I don't think there's any flowering conjecture that people need to make about. There's no massive revelation that needs to be said about the Sabbath. There's no massive revelation that needs to be said about marriage. It's stating simple fact.
Right. Well, the thing is though I think the reason it's good to have conversations like this is because even though it's not a massive revelation, even though it's very simple, straightforward, when you've been told all your life that something is bad because of this or something is bad because of that, and you're around people that don't really like, I just don't think that people realize the simplicity of it, and so it's good to point it out. And I'm glad that we're having this conversation for that reason. But like, because this whole thing, why is adultery immoral? I think most people seem to get it wrong. It's really because God said so, and you either acknowledge His authority or you don't. Um,
Yeah, and
it's
I mean
not like the
that's
other
what the last
commandments.
that's what the our entire conversation really has been pointing back to. You can say yes, there's all these reasons, and when you do break some of it down, there is a physical reason, there is a physiological reason that God said don't cheat on your wife, don't have all these relationships with multiple people. He wants us, to be healthy, and this goes into another topic of discussion as far as if you want to talk about marking up your body, that that's, I think that's also kind of messing with God's Lego set. If
No, I get what you're
you,
saying.
you, okay, yeah. Let me go there for a second, because I think this ties in. Um,
Well, okay, I
say
probably
say
have a very different understanding of that law than you do. Just before, just so you're aware, like you go ahead and say whatever, but I might have a
no.
very different take.
So I'll use this example.
Okay,
Uh, say you did build a Lego set or a house or whatever,
sure.
and you used very specific colors. You used a very specific construction plan. You made it look a certain way because that was how you wanted it to look, and you had your own reasons for it looking that way, and you had a specific purpose for it to be built that way, and it was structured a
Yeah,
certain way because that was the best way for it to be constructed.
yeah. Okay.
Because I'm gonna use that specifically. That was the best way for it to be constructed. That was best for the design.
Yeah.
Okay. And then somebody comes along and starts replacing pieces and colors and parts of that construction, and now they've taken that construction and they've changed a little bit or a lot of it. It can be whatever, but they've marked it up in such a way that it's no longer the original design.
Right. Yeah.
Right? If you change even one piece, it's no longer the original design,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that is my take on it. That is my understanding of it, because
Of what
if
specifically? Of marriage, of the Sabbath, or of the tattoos thing?
whether it's
Or
marking
all?
up your body, whether it's the Sabbath, whether it's
Okay.
uh marriage, I think it all applies.
Yeah, you could argue that. I don't. I think that that's it would, I guess my thing would be like it would be hard to say that for sure that's why, but you could definitely, I think it's a very fair argument that could be um
Because I mean,
applicable.
from even from a non-biblical standpoint, you can I can back it up with scripture. I can back it up from the Nazarite oath of, not drinking alcohol, not touching anything unclean. Like, it wasn't it wasn't that those things yes, those things were harmful to your body, and yes, God told you not to do those things, but at the end of the day, it was because God designed you to be a certain way and he wants you to be as pure as possible. He wants to keep you as whole and as pure as possible. Like, I've got more scars on me than A, I care to admit, B, I care to count. Um, do I think that was God's design for my body? No. I don't think that. I think it makes him very sad.
You mean the
To
you're referring to tattoos? You said scars.
So I'm referring to scars.
You're you're referring to scars.
I have more scars than I care to count.
Oh, okay.
You can talk about tattoos. This is specifically just marks on your body, right? You can talk about people cutting themselves, and I understand that that may be a touchy subject for some people, so I'll keep it very simple.
Right.
Uh, Again, you are changing fundamentally. You are changing your body, which God created.
Yeah.
And when you cheat on your spouse, when you commit adultery, you are attacking or changing or trying to alter the
The
institution.
original design and intent and
Right.
purpose and all that. I agree.
And same thing when you break the Sabbath, you are attacking, you are violating, you are changing the original purpose. And so, like I said, it ties in. It's a tangential subject, and we can talk about that in more in depth another time. But I think it does tie in because when you're talking
Well,
about
that would apply to
tree,
everything, though, wouldn't it? Like couldn't
absolutely.
you argue that for like literally every commandment ever and every instruction or command that God ever gave? Like, I think that that could totally fit behind all of them. So it's not
So,
really.
I mean, would that not apply?
Um, yeah, on the premise that, which as Christians we accept, but on the premise that God knows everything, knows what he's doing, knows what's best, has our best in view, etc. And so set it all up this way and told us to do it that way, therefore it's the best way. Yes, that would
So,
apply.
so
Yes.
in conjunction with this situation that came up recently, I after the fact, I had a conversation with a friend of mine who was talking about this whole situation as far as this the quadriplegic. I understand this is touching way back, and if you don't remember, basically quadriplegic, weird situation, spiritually married, not in the laws of the government, eyes of
I
the government,
remember.
yada yada yada,
Yeah.
whatever. For the viewers who didn't remember, um, so we were talking about that, and I'm like, okay, that's cool, right? So this is the way you want to present it. So that's something that's in the Bible. It's very black and white. Cool. All right. So I presented it this way. Do we believe that the Bible is inspired by God as
Well,
Christians?
I mean, yes.
Okay. All right. So everything that's in the Bible is God's word.
Yes.
So therefore, if you don't follow everything that the Bible says, that is sin and adultery and being a false witness.
Yes, but see, here's the thing. While it is true that while the law of the excluded middle is true, which is simply that a statement is either true or false and there's no in between. So it's either sin or it's not sin, and there's no in between. While that's the case, it's going to boil down to interpretation. And the cool thing about it is that the Bible does not allow anybody to impose an interpretation on
Of their own.
of their well, yeah, but even collectively, like, in other words, you can have like the entire, collection of Jews in the judicial system judging that, if anybody accepts Jesus, they can be put out of the synagogue. Like, you can have, like, I agree that in the multitude
Yeah,
of counselors there's
you
safety,
can
but
have
sometimes the entire
misinterpretations.
multitude is wrong in their interpretation. And so God reserves to the individual the the right and responsibility to take the Bible himself, do the best he can to understand it, and follow his own conscientious convictions. And if that goes out of line with whatever the church clergy says or with whatever anybody else says, they kind of have to stuff it. Now, they might still have to disfellowship you if your behaviors are out of line with what they like. Sure, fine, but their conscientious convictions are paramount
Right.
to.
Yeah. You're
Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. And that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm not Is there an objective truth in the Bible? Yes.
yeah,
I want to make that extremely clear. There is
yes,
absolutely an objective truth in the Bible. Do we fully understand absolutely everything, all of its intricacies, the overwhelming mass of trigonometric and calculus problems that arise in the Bible, as far as like what lies beneath the surface and all of the little nuances and stuff like
sure.
that? No, we don't understand those things, but the basics are there. The basics are plain. The basics are easy to understand. We have the 10 commandments. We have what Jesus said about the 10 commandments, that
Well, yes,
the heavens and earth would have to pass away first before any part of that was going to go away.
yes, but
And
here's the thing. While it's true that those are basics, our whole discussion has been on this basic that should be already like well understood, but we're having the conversation because at least in my experience I found that it's not understood. Like
well,
even
and
just
so is it not understood, or is it just willful ignorance at this point?
well, I don't know that it's really like we can always judge that. Well, is this person willful? And I'm not saying don't judge it. Like I just don't
And
know
I'm
how
not
you could ever
and
really
and
know that you judged right. That would be my issue. Like the mind is going to judge things whether you like it or not. It's an autopilot. Like
yeah,
it
and I'm not saying that there aren't people that don't understand. Not saying that at all. I'm
sure.
talking about for those people who do understand, right?
Oh, well,
When
if they
they
do understand, then
right,
that it's
exactly.
obvious. But
When you read the Bible and it says don't commit adultery, and it gives you plenty of examples of what adultery is, it's very plain. It spells it out for you. It, as
yeah.
far as honoring the Sabbath goes, it's very plain and it spells it out for you. It's one of the plainest things that there is in the Bible.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Is the metric of the Sabbath.
The Bible is very plain, I think. Even a lot of places that are considered complicated, they're actually very plain.
You
However,
have to read,
the
but yeah.
you yeah, you have to be able to read, and that's a very like people do not seem to be literate anymore. But you know, yeah, and that's a
are
big
are
problem too.
are there,
So,
again, are there concepts in the Bible that you could say, well, that seems to contradict this, but well, no, when you take it in the context of what was actually being said, it's saying the
all
exact
right,
same
yeah.
thing. It's
No, I
going in
agree.
line.
I agree.
And again, it goes back to what I was saying about the appearance of evil. There is a line. There is a line that you can cross. I can hug my wife's my wife's cousin's wife. I can hug her because she's my friend, and we have an understanding that it's a very filial relation. It's a very friendly interaction. We're happy to see each
Sure.
other.
Yeah.
That's how we express our excitement for seeing one another. I hug I don't hug my brother, right? My brother is not a touchy-feely person.
Yeah.
He does not want his personal space encroached upon.
Yep.
So I don't hug him out of respect for that relationship,
Sure.
right? And people look at me and they're like, "You don't hug your brother? You don't like even like a side hug or like a fist bump?" Like, yeah, we do fist bumps. Like you'll see it every once in 6 months, but he's not a touchy
Yeah,
feely
sure.
person,
Yeah.
right? So is there a line that can be crossed in those adulterous relationships? Yes. Is it a metric based on that
Mhm.
individual relationship? Yes.
Yeah.
And So it's the same thing. Are there some things in the Bible that are very clear, cut and dry? Absolutely. Are there some things in the Bible that are based on the situation? Absolutely.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, you're absolutely right. You know, it comes down to your personal convictions. You've read the Bible. Uh, if you've studied it with the intent of finding truth, and you believe you have done all that you can, and your mind is open and receptive, and that is the conclusion that you came to, and you've even read the very basic texts where it says, you know, honor your father and mother. It says, you know, 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, and on the seventh day, which is the Sabbath, you should rest. You know, have you read all the plain text? You know, all the things that you think might be controversies. Have you compared and contrasted them?
Yeah, you've been
And
thorough.
if you believe that the Bible is inspired by God, then you also believe that there are no contradictions within the Bible. Otherwise, you don't believe the Bible is inspired by God. And I understand that's a hard take for some people, but
Right. No, and I understand. Well, okay. So I think that we have hit this all pretty good.
yeah, about from every direction we could.
Well, yeah, well, but I think it's good. Okay, so why is adultery immoral? We shouldn't be giving people conditional reasons. You can mention them as things that to consider, yeah, but the reason that adultery is immoral is because it's based on God's authority. He made man and he wanted men and women to interact in a certain way. That's his preference, and we should respect that. And understand that while he is a person that wants things done a certain way, he's also a king and ruler, and therefore we have to acknowledge that authority, because if we don't acknowledge that authority,
We're messing with
then
the
we're
letter set.
we're creating a schism in the kingdom, a division, and a divided kingdom cannot stand. God's going to have a kingdom that will stand forever, as it says in Daniel chapter 2, I
Yep,
think it is. And so that being the case, if you want to be part of a kingdom that stands forever, you have to acknowledge his authority. So
absolutely.
I think we hit all that really good. Um, it's not arbitrary. It could just be that it's his preference, but that's not necessarily arbitrary. So let's see. We talked about how I still maintain that adultery is explicitly sexual. It's not. I mean, you could. I'll even give you romantic feelings and romantic interactions and stuff. Sure, romance and
And I'm
anything
leaving it, and
sexual.
I'm leaving it there.
Yeah,
I'm
I don't
not.
think it should extend past that. A lot of
No,
people
it
do.
doesn't.
They say this emotional adultery thing, and if you're meaning romance by that, sure, fine. But people extend it past that, and I think it's wrong. Um, let's see what else here we got. Yes, we should definitely love our brothers and sisters in Christ of both sexes, as Christ loves us, with a pure heart, fervently, unfeigned, etc.
Yep.
Let's see. We talked about the Sabbath and marriage being the whole wholly based on God's authority. They are religious dogma, and there's no real reason that an unbeliever would observe them, um, because it's not really based off of any objective metrics or anything.
Well, and so that's, and I don't mean to, you know, drag this further than you want to, but that's the other thing. I'll say this: if you don't believe, and this is, I would say this is really to everyone. If you truly believe that your marriage should be honored simply out of the respect you have for one another, then you can also believe in a God who made you. But if you do not intend to honor that relationship, if you have, if your sole purpose of that relationship is for financial gain, is for uh, status or whatever, quite frankly, you have no business getting married.
I think I know what you're saying. At first, it sounded like you were saying something that you perhaps weren't, but I think you're all basing it off of the big conversation that we've had, and even
Yep.
just the comments immediately preceding. So, but yeah, okay, all right. And then there is one last thing that I want to mention, just because it's really fun and I like to do this to people.
Yeah, go
Not
ahead.
not to you, but just like to everybody. So whenever this whole thing like of
Mess with
emotional
my Legos.
adultery comes up, or male female interactions, I like to bring up King David. King David was an old dude. He was cold. He couldn't stay warm at night. And so they decided to get a really pretty virgin girl in the kingdom. And she came and literally just slept with him. And the Bible is explicitly clear that they did not have sexual relations. And this
Still wrong.
was. Huh? Do
I
what?
think it's still wrong.
You still think it's wrong? Well, perhaps it is a
Were
historical
his
record, but
were his were his what, hundreds of wives dead?
um, I have no idea, honestly.
Well, then you can't convince me that one of them couldn't have been just fine.
Well, perhaps he was like, how old was this guy when he died? I don't even remember.
He was
Like
he was
80s.
getting up there, but it I understand that everybody says he's a man after God's own heart, and that is absolutely true.
Well, that
Did
was
he?
true. That statement was actually made before he committed adultery with Bathsheba, before he had Uriah killed. That statement was actually made about him when he was still a boy. I don't think that he was a man
And it
after
was
of
made
God's
it
own
was made
heart.
about him as an adult too.
Was it?
Yeah,
I
I'm
Well,
pretty
last time
confident
I
in that.
looked at it, it was only regarding the time when he was the boy David killing Goliath ultimately type of shepherdess stuff. It wasn't after he became somebody that was adulterous and murderous and stuff and so forth. But
But right. So we can agree that he made mistakes and did things he probably shouldn't have. So
yes.
do I think that getting a young pretty girl from a out 'cause let's boil it down. I mean, that's what it
That's what it
is.
says. Yeah.
You're getting a young, attractive girl who's never been with a man, and you're going to say, all right, you're going to go sleep with the king to keep him warm at night. I have to put that on the same lines as Gandhi sleeping with lots of women every night just to abstain from sexual impurity. Like, you're still doing something wrong.
Well, so I'll agree that you could be wrong for multiple reasons. So, for example, the whole like appearance thing. Um, you could.
There's a difference between a caretaker
Well,
and
that's literally what she was. She
it,
was.
if that's the case and she was just there to, if she was not with,
Well,
I'm not talking about with body heat, I am talking about she was there like turning
oh,
his
well, but
blankets.
she was literally the hot potato in bed. Like literally, that was why they got her, because he was
Well, so no,
cold.
I
He
would
couldn't.
struggle with that.
Well, see, when I was thinking about this, I'm like, look, man, I don't really know what the setup was. He was the king. I kind of feel like they could start a fire in the room, or they could do something. But the way that it reads is like, even if you piled up a bunch of blankets on him, his body would not produce heat, and so it was pretty nuts. And so they
So
got her
so
her
okay,
and yeah.
I'll give another
Do you
example,
think
right?
there's ever a case that could be acceptable?
Again, I think I still think I'd have to say no.
No,
Um,
there's no case ever.
if we are talking about specifically, if there is no other exhaustible option,
Okay, good.
right? If we are talking about survival,
So like stranded on an
yes.
island and it's too cold.
Yes. If
Okay,
there is literally no other option, yes. Do I
okay.
also think that we're given illustrations in the Bible of righteous people doing unrighteous things? Also, yes. I
Oh yeah,
that's what
sure.
I
I'll
think that
agree
that
it's a
is.
historical. I'll agree it's a historical. Yes.
That's personally what I would read that as. Does that mean that's what it is? No. But we're also given the illustration of Abraham having multiple wives,
Oh,
and
sure.
we can see where that was also not a construct of the original
Well, let me ask you this:
marriage intent.
why do you think then that the historical, which I agree, a historical, it says that they did it, doesn't say whether it's good or bad, but why would you say that the historical explicitly states that he did not have sexual relations with her? What would be the point of that? One, do you think that was true, which I'm sure you do because you think it's the word of God? And then why did the Holy Spirit have this transcribed down in the word of God? For what purpose?
It very well could be to illustrate a caretaker sort of role. I can see where that being written the way that it is because of the way that it is written.
Because it's pretty like it's there, and they made
Right?
sure that you knew. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Show I've got a Bible sitting right here. Show me, what is that? Second Kings
I'll
or
pull it up
Second
here for you.
Chronicles?
Let me see if I can find it. It's real simple. You just type the gat no heat. It'll come right up. Okay,
Got no
so
heat.
Gat, Gat. So it's First Kings 1:1. David was old. He got him no heat. Yeah, well, let's read it. This is fun. This is fun. I like fun things. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, First Kings 1:1 through 4. Do you mind if I read it?
Go right ahead. Just give me one moment to find 1 through 4. Got it.
Yep. First Kings 1:1 through 4. Now King David was old and stricken in years, and they covered him with clothes, but he gat no heat. Wherefore his servants said unto him, it wasn't David's idea, let there be sought for my lord the king a young virgin, and let her stand before the king, and let her cherish him, and let her lie in thy bosom, that my lord the king may get heat. So they sought for a fair damsel throughout all the coast of Israel, and found Abishag, a Shunammite, and brought her to the king. And the damsel was very fair, and cherished the king, and ministered to him, but the king knew her not.
Oh my goodness, I love that.
What?
so
Why
so
are you
all right, so
laughing?
I'll point that out. It wasn't even his idea. It's very possible he wasn't even with it.
Well,
Because it doesn't say one way or another, and I think you can go either way on that. But it wasn't his idea.
well, yeah, I pointed
So
that out.
so there so there is a reasonable suspicion that he was at a point that he couldn't have made a decision one way or another, and that was just his servant's best idea.
Well,
Um,
the reason that I say that it wasn't his idea is to say that it's not like David's like, hey, let me find a pretty girl and sleep with her. This was the way the scriptures describe it is that okay, there's this dilemma. The servants realize the king is cold. He's not staying warm. What are we gonna do? Well, if he had a body warmer, he would be in good shape. So let's find somebody. And then they went and found somebody, and
well, so I have another question, and
yeah.
there may be a sociological reason for this, but why couldn't the servants climb in bed with him?
Well, that would look. That see to me that would be even more weird. Um,
You think so? Because
I think
the
so.
servants are literally there to care for the king, right? They didn't have to go find a pretty young lady who
Well, the
had
servants
never
might
known
have been
anyone.
female, for all we know. It doesn't say they were manservants, or
No,
yeah,
it doesn't. And we can speculate one way or another, but
okay,
again, I think there were other options. I think there were better options.
like what?
Uh Again,
Because I've tried to
however
think. What?
however many hundreds of wives he had, I don't think they had to go find another pretty young lady to do that. I
I'll grant you, they would kind of be weird if they all were dead at this point. I'll give you that. I think that's reasonable.
I don't think even in King David's own age he still wasn't uh inheriting pretty young women.
Inheriting?
uh, Play on tongue in cheek, but I don't think even in King David's old age he still wasn't sleeping around.
Well,
um,
you were just getting ready to say that he wasn't really with it. So now you're saying that he I got
not
to be
not
consistent
in
here.
that context, but what I'm getting at in recent years past when he was
Oh,
with it,
okay. I see.
right?
Okay.
when he was when he was older but not so old, he was probably still marrying younger women. So it's reasonable to think that there were a lot of them that were probably still around.
Sure,
And
yeah.
so I guess that's from my standpoint. I I would struggle with the thought of, okay, he could have just asked one of his wives to come sleep with him. But again, maybe there's a sociological reason for that, but that really doesn't excuse the behavior anyway. I can't give a
Well,
sociological
okay. So,
excuse.
well, no, no, no. Well, let's just put some things into good perspective here. So, first, in the Old Testament, and most, if not all of it, uh, polygamy wasn't regarded as sin. It just wasn't. Abraham did it. David, the kings of Israel, like all
Well,
of
and
them
so
did it. It seemed.
that's where
Now,
I'm.
I think that it was wrong. I just don't think that they were aware of that, or at least not all of them. And the thing is when it's practiced and it's around you, you become desensitized to it. And if I was gonna offer an argument like to kind of like excuse them, it would be this: while Jesus did come out and say, look, you know, it was supposed to be like at the beginning, which was, when you look back at the beginning, one man and one woman. There was nothing that really indicated in the law that you couldn't have more than one wife. And so they're just like, oh, well, it's not adultery if I just marry them. And so they would just marry them, and they didn't see this was
I
wrong. So for David, you have to understand he's like has all these wives and he doesn't see this as wrong. So why would it be wrong to not even have sexual relations with this person, but just like she's just laying there?
now
Like,
I'll give you that. I'll give you that. It doesn't change the black and white design though.
well, oh no, no, I agree. I'm
So
just
it's
saying that,
it right,
yeah.
and so I get it. I get it from his perspective, from that perspective, from the servant's perspective, or from David's perspective. Absolutely, absolutely, not a crime in their eyes. Is it still a sin? Yes, and so I feel like that was the original question. I feel like that was the original
Well,
proposition.
yes. Well, we kind of we that's where we started, and then we kind of went back into why they did what they did and whatever. And so I'm like, well, let's just like look at it from their perspective of where they were. So we kind of like
But yeah,
backtracked.
yeah, absolutely. From their
But
perspective, not a problem.
bringing back to where we are today, and what we know in the New Testament and clarification regarding polygamy with Romans 7 and First Corinthians 7 and other texts and so forth, or polyamorous, I should say, not specifically polygamy, but polyamorous relationships. Um, Bringing it back today, I do think that there could be exceptions, which which you acknowledged. Even I understand they might be under some extreme type of situations, but I've run into extreme situations in life, so I don't think that that's so implausible. Um, but I do think that it would definitely carry the appearance of evil, unless there was some reason to believe otherwise.
Yeah. So so again, I think polyamory and polygamy, I think those are very clear cut and dry. I don't think there's any excuse for it at all.
Right.
Uh, Completely wrong. Um, I would, at this point, given our discussion, I would even say divorce is wrong. Um, based on what we've talked about this evening. Uh, not, and I understand that's going to make some people feel bad. I History has happened. It is what it is, right?
Yeah.
The best thing we can do is pick our feet up and move on. So I don't want anybody to think that you're going to hell because you had a divorce. That's not what I'm trying to say at all.
Oh yeah, no, not at
I'm
all.
saying a future decision, and especially for no reason, divorce is wrong. Um, but I would say even for the reason of adultery, yes, is adultery given as a reason, as a condition? Yes, but it was really just because of the hardness of the Israelites' hearts.
That the bill of divorce was originally given, yes. I do.
Yes.
Here's why I think, like, I do think that if your spouse were to commit adultery against you, I do think that
Is
you
it
should I
again?
do
Is
think
it
you should still try to forgive them. I do think that if you can restore the relationship, you should. The reason that I
well?
think
So
that
that's
divorce
what
is,
I'm. That's the condition that I'm applying it to, right?
yeah,
You've done everything you can to restore the relationship, but it's just it's adultery to the point where that person is now saying, all right, this relationship is no longer working for me. I want out of it. I have committed adultery. I can't be faithful anymore. I don't want to be faithful anymore. um then the other party, absolutely has a right to separation.
right.
um because again, they're just honoring that free will. But if you haven't done everything you can to repair that relationship, if you haven't gone through the appropriate conversations with one another, and the process of at least trying, and I don't mean trying as in, oh, we tried it for 24 hours and we're still angry. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about making a real uh, effort to try and repair the relationship. I think until you've done that, you really still, I don't think you have grounds.
Well, yeah, and
And I get that that's a hard take for some people. That might be a pill
well,
to
but
swallow, but
I think that some people can't swallow it, and I don't mean that in the sense that they're spiritually incapable. I think that adultery can do so much damage, and it does do so much damage, irreparable damage. And it can be like, I can easily see that a lot of people can't get past it. Like, even if they want to, they're not going to be able, like, they're not going to be able to function the way a marriage is supposed to function, because the betrayal's too deep, the pain is too real, the trauma is too. I think that some people just can't do it. See, here's the thing. God has infinite capacities of enduring things. He can put up with stuff and put up with stuff and put up with stuff without it actually killing him. Human
okay,
beings
okay, right.
can't.
I see where you're going.
Human
Okay,
beings have a limit. Like, if human beings put up with certain things, and it can and depends on the human, some can endure more than others, it will psychologically deconstruct them. Their PTSD will make their life absolutely wretched, and it will just destroy them. And for that reason, or at least that being one reason, I think that God's allowing divorce, because it will probably destroy the individual
right. Okay,
otherwise.
right, right. And for that reason, in that sense, I would agree. So that I get where that perspective is coming from. For me, that doesn't jive because I've been through the ringer.
Because you maybe, yeah, because maybe you can endure that. I don't know that everybody
Yeah,
can.
right. So you're right. There again, black and white, different people, different situations.
Right.
Uh, yes, for one person, it may just be too much, and it may be too much for that person to handle. And in that instance, what I say it is fine, where you just can't be around each other anymore. Yes. okay, at that point, you have to look at it as, does that person have a right to remarry? And I really don't want to go into that. That is not,
Yeah, no, no, and that's well beyond the scope, but okay.
but but point point being, yes, I think there is a situation, and again, the Bible does say that it is something that is an option, and again, that's what sin is. But I think you have to make an effort. I think you have to make an effort to repair that relationship.
I think if some people make that effort, it will destroy them. And I'm not saying that to excuse anybody, like if somebody can endure it or thinks maybe they could, and like I'm not trying to like give people an excuse, but like I do think that there are people, and I'm sure you might even know some people that wouldn't be able to endure it because they're just
I can think of one off the top of my head.
their minds, their hearts, their emotion, they're not like it will destroy them to try. It will destroy them to any of it. And so I think that for that reason, God's like, okay, technically the marriage was broken anyway, the covenant, everything. You divorcing them is just you signing the papers that they already worked up, set in motion. Like it's already done. You're just, here's the paperwork for it. So, but yeah,
I
and that this got all very far. How did we get here from David? I'm just
I don't
curious.
know. I don't know, but to get back onto that, that's an interesting situation. I think there were options, but you're probably absolutely right. At that point, customs be what they were, they probably didn't see it as a problem.
Right. So
But if if the question is, if do I see it as a problem, the answer is yes.
yeah. Okay. Well, and that's fine. Like I'm not trying to even in this whole conversation and every discussion ever, I'm not trying to like make you agree with me. I express what I believe and why and go from there. But I think that case with David is interesting because it says this thing and it does and all this stuff and then it's like but David never had sexual relations with her. And I think that is there for a reason to and I think that we can learn from it. If like not that we're going to make excuses for
Well,
sin, but
and
just
I
that we
even
might make excuses to do righteousness in cases where we might otherwise not feel like we could do that. Does that make
I
sense?
even said it, like, again, from a survivability standpoint, from a specific human function standpoint, like, to continue a quality of life,
Yeah.
that's one thing. To continue being able to live, that's
To live or to
one
be able
situ
to live cuz there's physical death, but then you can like also suffer extreme emotional and this is where it would get more muddy because then people are going to abuse this, but you can be technically alive and so messed up emotionally that you need somebody to be there to help you not I don't know how to express this.
I know what
Like
you're saying.
there are some things in life that will utterly they will not kill you, but they will make you wish you were dead and they will just strip from you all happiness, all joy, and they will make your life very dark and you will not be able to escape. And having somebody there, maybe it does happen to be a friend of the opposite sex that's able to hold your hand and they're the only person that you trust because of whatever weird reasons in life and so etc, because you had a bad father or because you had a bad mother and therefore you don't trust that entire gender or whatever. Like just I think
So
for
again,
first
yeah,
and
I
foremost we need to make sure that we're loving each other as Christ loved us. Yeah, appearances are one thing, but we have to prioritize making sure each other is okay first. Obviously, we
yeah,
have to know our God so we don't fall to temptation, but knowing your God make sure each other's okay first, and then you can play appearance games after the fact. That's what
Yes,
I
yes,
have to
and
maintain that, because some people play the appearance things first, and I get really mad because I'm like, this person is suffering. Here, let me just give you this example, and then I know we should probably close up, but I'll let you finish your thing after me, and then we'll close up. But I was in a literature evangelism program one time, and this girl, well, because we're walking all the time, she busted her ankle up. And it was swollen really bad. They thought she had broke it. They were going to take her to the hospital. Now, I was watching two other women, who women just generally tend to be physically weaker, and there's nothing wrong with that. They're not bad, but they were trying to help this girl with the potentially broken ankle hobble over to the other vehicle. And I knew that if I stepped in to help, I was going to have some spiritual gurus breathing down my neck saying, inappropriate. And I'm like, this woman's hopping on one foot. She's going to end up breaking her other ankle. These two girls are struggling to help her. I'm an adult male. I can just pick the girl up and stick her in the van so she can go to the hospital. So I did.
oh,
And,
so yeah, yeah,
and
no,
I was very intentional about this. I'm like, and you know what? My hand touched her butt, because when you pick somebody up and you have to
that's
hold them in your
hey, that's
arms,
where
it
you grab them.
happens. Yeah, so like I'm just like, I'm gonna help you, and everybody was actually smart enough, because they knew me, not to say a word to me about it. Like, if they got on my case, it was the end of them, and I think they knew it. So nobody said a word. But because of the setting and circumstances, and I knew these people very well, I knew that if I touched this girl or picked her up or put her in the vehicle, much less touch her butt in the process, that was going to just be like all kinds of problems. But I'm like, you know what? I serve God, and I'm going to help this person, and you know what? You're going to have to suck it up and deal with it. And if you got a problem with it, then let's fight about it. Like, that's just me. Like,
Well, yeah, no. So again, you're really speaking to what I've been saying. Care. I mean, you're absolutely right. Care for each other, but again, from a love love your neighbor as yourself stand. My goodness, if I busted both ankles and I was relying on, I'm 185 pounds. Like two women are not helping me to a vehicle. I'm looking for another dude. Like and if I see, and this is not to be rude, but this is just brass facts. If I see a lady who is 190 pounds or heavier than I am, I'm like, look, no offense, I don't think your 110-pound daughter is going to help you. Why don't I just carry you to the car real quick and
right.
let me help you. And it's like, I'll even put you in my car. I'll take you where you need to go, and
Yeah.
we'll be fine. We'll get this taken care of. That's that to me is not even related to this discuss, and I could see how it could be. I could see how somebody could take that situation and totally blow it out of proportion. To me, that isn't even a situation that popped up in my mind. I can't even imagine someone looking at that and being like, let's put that under a microscope and see how we
Oh,
can
I
twist
bet.
this
Well, see, and
around.
that's fine. And I get that you probably have a very different background than me. I grew up around very legalistic, microscopy
Well, and
people.
I'm getting that vibe because you were talking about in the very beginning, people giving the most, I mean, honestly, based answers, but people giving the most logical, physiological reasons for not committing adultery. Is like, is that totally true? Yeah. Is that why we don't eat pork? Absolutely. But also, God said so. Like, I hate to tell you, I mean, at the end of the day, we do what we do because we have a conscience, and our conscience tells us what's right and wrong. My conscience may tell me something's right, and it may tell you that it's wrong. My conscience may tell me something's wrong and it may tell you that it's right. As long as we're consistent, and this is something that really needs to be driven home. As long as you are reading your Bible, as long as you are consistently seeking truth, as long as you are, when you read something and it hits you like, oh man, what I've been doing this whole time is wrong, but I'm going to keep doing it because that's what I've always done. At that point,
Right.
it is most definitely a sin. You're doing something wrong. But it's like, oh man, I've been doing this wrong the whole time. I'm going to apologize for it and then I'm going to change my ways. You're on the right track. But you don't know what you don't know. And that's why we read our Bible every day. And that's why a lot of people don't read their Bible every day, is because they don't want to have to change. They don't want to have to acknowledge that there might be some things in their life that they are doing wrong, like polygamy, polyamory, whatever that may be.
Right.
Um, that's why a lot of people don't read their Bible every day. They don't want to read that the Sabbath is the day you should worship on. They don't want to read that God is very specific in his laws, because yes, are people individuals and worship God different ways and want to show their appreciation for him different ways? Absolutely. Does he give specific guidelines to worship as far as how we honor him goes? In some cases, yes, and in some cases, no. He doesn't tell us what songs we should sing, just that, maybe make a joyful noise every once in a while. Show your appreciation for him verbally, uh, whatever it may be. But basically, what I'm getting at, what I'm trying to drive home is, if you're not reading your Bible, you're never going to know these things. You're never going to uh, continue to grow in your relationship with Jesus. You're never going to continue to grow in your relationship with God. And you're certainly never going to be able to come to the point where you can have these discussions and say, okay, man, I've been looking at this situation completely wrong. I need to reevaluate. Um, or maybe you're confirmed in that, I believe that there are that adultery is a very black and white thing, but I believe that every situation has a certain level of, in intensity. Are there absolutely brother and sister relationships? Totally. Are there acquaintance level relationships where it's just like, hey, how's it going? Hey, how's it going? That's your entire relationship? Absolutely. That is a relationship. Um, or as a form of one. Uh, but if you're not reading your Bible every day, if you're not continually seeking truth, you're never going to know that stuff. You're never going to come to that point where you can be grounded in what you believe, and you're always going to be wishy-washy. You're always going to, you might be open for discussion, or you might never be open for discussion. And I think that's where a lot of people, I think that really is a good conclusion to what we've been talking about, is read your Bible, see what it says for yourself. If you agree with us, great. If you don't agree with us, that's fine too. It's wherever you are in your faith, that's fine. Just always continue to grow and look for more truth. I
Yeah.
think I think is really the point of what we're getting at.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And that's a lot of why I want to have these discussions, is because educational, thought provoking content, but it's also stuff that's very practical. It comes up. We talk about emotional adultery, people giving conditions that, like, that's not really what it's about. And then people excuse it because, well, those conditions don't apply. And but anyways, I think this has been great. I think we've covered everything pretty well. I appreciate you coming on here. If you are okay, I don't mind closing out. And
Go
are
for
you
it.
okay with that? Okay, great. Well, I hope my audience has enjoyed this discussion. And if you're interested in having a debate with me or holding one of these discussions, or we can play apologetic mock trials, that's fine too. But all in the interest of providing fun educational content. And but yeah, just get in contact with me, and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you, Blake, and I'll want to talk with you maybe next week or the following, we'll pick another topic if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Let's plan for 2 weeks from now. Let's do every other week for right now
Okay.
and see where that ends up. And if it comes down to it, and I can do every week, and maybe record a day early if I have to be somewhere that Friday or something like that, we'll absolutely do that. But yeah, I absolutely have enjoyed this. It's always wonderful talking, James, and I really do enjoy our discussions, and I learned a lot. I don't know about you, but I really came out not necessarily with a new perspective, but sort of a reaffirmation of a perspective I already had, and
And it can help like
put it in
refine
context.
it, like
Yeah.
refine it and define it and make what you already know perhaps clearer. Even if you didn't learn something, it just becomes more like, oh, I can see that better. And that's
Yep.
so I
Yep.
appreciate that too. And I've enjoyed this discussion. I look forward to doing this again. But it's done that for me, help like I often feel like I'm crazy because everybody tells me that I'm crazy. So it's nice to when somebody says, "No, you're not crazy. You make perfect sense." That's I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, that's good." I don't know. I was like
Yeah.
when
Well,
you
and
got
so
everybody telling you you're a basket head, it's like, well, you kind of like start to wonder, maybe I am. So I try to stay humble and like listen and
well,
see
so
what
I mean, I mean,
people
yeah, and
got.
you're always gonna get those people. You know, again, I think I have very edgy um, beliefs too. I think I got really hard takes because well, so I don't know if we're still rolling or not, but
We are. How about we close up? Because I don't want to
yeah,
get
I'll
off
continue with you
topic, and then
afterwards.
we'll continue afterwards. Yeah,
They
but
they can join us for the after show.
the after show. Yeah. All right. Well, take care, guys, and we'll see you again soon. All right. Bye.